Hey everybody, welcome to XZ Chat. I'm Serge.
I'm Rob.
I'm Gen Z.
I'm Gen X.
And today is going to be a pretty big video. Today we are going over Halo 3 terminals.
Wow.
So,
finally. Finally.
Yeah, so I think it was during the Halo 2 terminals video I mentioned that I wasn't sure if we were going to go over the Halo 3 terminals because unfortunately, unlike the first two terminals for Halo Combat Evolved and Halo 2 Anniversary, those had videos. This one, Halo 3 terminals were actually included with the original game, but they were just like text-based. They're like very heavily text-based terminals. And confession time, as a kid, I stumbled across one of these terminals and I started reading through it and I found it super confusing because I had no idea what was going on. And I got bored very quickly and I ended up not touching the terminals at all. But off that one video, Halo 2 terminals, someone actually commented that no, please show Rob the Halo 3 terminals. They think it would be a really cool thing for you to check out. And they said that I should take a look through them and that they'll think I'll find them more interesting now than when I was a kid.
Okay.
And I'm happy to say that they were right. Before I drove over to Rob's place today, I got up early in the morning and I did my homework. I reviewed the Halo 3 terminals. I even made a little cheat sheet here that we'll go over in a second. And I found it actually really interesting. And I think you'll find it really interesting too. It actually goes into a subject that you were wanting to learn more about, which is Forerunners.
Yeah, I really want to know about their history, and I'm hoping that they are not all gone, although according to the story they are. But I'm hoping there's a remnant somewhere. But yeah.
So, yeah, and now I'm wondering one thing I wanted to do was I wanted to make it engaging. I was like, how am I going to make this engaging? Because like with the Halo 1 and Halo 2 terminals, those are videos. So we could like watch the videos and it'd be interesting. Since this is text-based heavy, I didn't want to just make you sit there and read. So I was wondering, is there some other way to go about this? And when I did some digging on YouTube, I was happy to find this one channel, Installation 00. That's the name of the channel. And what they did was something really neat. They took all the terminals.
I knew it.
Yeah,
I knew it.
There's a credit there, by the way, guys. There's a credit. We'll include a link to the original if you want to check it out in the description below. But what they did was actually really neat. They compiled a video with all the terminals being shown on screen. The text is shown on screen as they're scrolling through each terminal. But they also got together a bunch of different voice actors to voice each different character for terminals. So for the ones where there's actual like voices in the game, like for example like the Gravemind, they tried their best to have a voice actor recreate that sound. So the voice actors for those for like the official characters, they might sound a little different, but I think they got it pretty spot on. There'll be a obvious difference, but these aren't like for most of this is not the official voice actors. They did get Master Chief to do a little bit of voice lines. The official Master Chief, he collaborated on this project for a little bit.
So it's a big project.
Yeah. But the other voice actors, they just did their best. And there's some characters in this that don't have a voice in the Halo series because they never showed up in the Halo series officially. So for those, they just kind of took their own decision on how to make the voice sound, right? So this is really neat because it makes it more interactive and you get to actually watch and hear a voice as you're reading through the terminals.
Well, when you were first introducing us to this, I thought to myself, with all the fans out there, someone has got to create a compilation like this. So, yeah, I kind of thought we would have something just as you said.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
And before we jump in, I wanted to go over some lore because otherwise it could be pretty confusing. So I'm going to give a quick summary of what these terminals will be touching on. So first of all, this is touching on the Forerunner Flood War. It lasted about 300 years, so 3 centuries. And this took place about 100,000 years before like modern day Halo, like the Halo Combat Evolved events. Yeah. So it was a long time before. Do you remember what happened to the Forerunners?
Well, they all died because the Flood were taking over, and they realized the only way that they could kill off the Flood is if they activated a Halo. And I think it was 04. But they activated a Halo.
I think they activated the
was
raid.
It all of them?
All of them.
All of them.
Yeah.
Okay. And then they killed all life in the galaxy.
Yeah. And so
I'm sorry, within a 25,000 light year radius.
As the games like to touch on. And then I think it was Halo 2 Anniversary where you got that confirmation that the Forerunners are gone. Remember in Halo 2 Anniversary at the very end, the 343 Guilty Spark answers the question of what exactly happened to them, and they had to activate the Halo array. Well, this is talking about that whole war, and what's cool is it's like fragments of the past. So it's like different conversations that occurred all those hundreds of thousands of years ago. that were during the events of the Foreigner Flood
This is
War.
gonna be cool.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
really neat. And what I did, as I mentioned, was I made a little cheat sheet.
Yeah. What is this?
This is a cheat sheet.
Cheat sheet.
I'll show the camera. Unfortunately, we don't have a color printer, so we had to highlight the black and white paper.
It's being set up.
Yeah, I'll put a graphic on screen so you guys can see. I actually made this as a Photoshop file. I took some images I found online. I think there's a website that like neatly outlined what each of these symbols represent. And so for each terminal that we go over, when you hear, you'll be able to hear the conversation. So you kind of be able to get from the voice who's currently speaking. But in the terminals, there's the symbols in the top corners of each terminal, and those symbols correspond to characters from the story. So the first one we'll go over is these two blue symbols. One of them is the Didact, and the other one is the Librarian. Now, the Didact and the Librarian, they're both main characters in this. They're both pretty significant, and they are both Forerunners. So these are ancient Forerunners, and they're actually husband and wife, as if I recall correctly. So they kind of have a relationship with each other, but they tend to have a very contentious relationship. They don't see eye to eye on many things. So they oftentimes take different approaches to, like, have different viewpoints on which direction they should take, which route they should take.
For a solution or something like that.
Exactly.
So on that note, then, I'm going to assume here the librarian is the one who oversaw the library, right? Which housed the flood samples.
That's an interesting question. I think she did. I think in general, those research facilities were owned by the Forerunners.
Yeah.
The Didact and Librarian, they both held high positions. They both were part of like a lot of the decision making. Not only part of, they were like leading the decision making for what to do in terms of the war. The Librarian, what's interesting is she, from very early on, was in favor of firing the halo array, whereas the Didact wanted to take his own approaches, and so she began starting a conservation momentum, which the Didact saw as a waste of time. Her goal was to catalog a bunch of sentient species that would be wiped out when the halos were fired, and catalog them so that those planets could then be repopulated many years after the firing of the halo arrays. So, so that's something to, you'll hear more about that in the terminals. So I'll move on to the next character, which in my opinion is one of the most interesting, and is the highlight of the terminals, which is Mendicant Bias. He's also referred to as 05032 sometimes, but Mendicant Bias is a contender class AI. Contender class is like a super AI. It's like the most advanced AI Foreigners have developed up to that point. There's nothing
like
more.
Sparky.
Sparky, I don't think he is a contender class AI.
So it's even higher than him.
Way higher.
Wow. Okay.
To put into perspective, when the Foreigner Flood War started, it was it's very difficult to fight the flood, as you know, right? So what they did was they created the most sentient AI to be as efficient in military combat as well. So they created this contender class AI that is super sentient, and they gave it control over the entire military, the entire Foreigner military. So all of its ships, all its personnel, its fleet, its crew, weapon systems, sentinels, everything.
Wow.
And with the idea that this super advanced AI would basically lead them to victory against the flood and always come up with the best possible outcome. And the thing is, and it also had the objective of studying the Gravemind. The Gravemind, which was basically the hive mind that was controlling all the flood forces, and to try and find some weakness to exploit to defeat the Gravemind. And it studied the Gravemind for 43 years during the war, before it got corrupted by the logic plague. The Gravemind, through a series of conversations, is so intelligent, so wise, that it managed to actually corrupt Mendicant Bias and convince Mendicant Bias through a series of conversations to support the Gravemind instead. Wow. So that all of a sudden, this contender class AI, Mendicant Bias, that had almost full control of like the Foreigner fleet and weapon systems and everything, was convinced by the Gravemind that the Gravemind is what's doing what's right, not the makers of the AI.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, the Foreigners had this massive problem because most of their weapon systems, their fleet, suddenly became...
They lost control of it.
Lost control because the AI, Mendicant Bias, defected to the other side.
Right.
This is where offensive...
That's an interesting story.
Yeah, isn't it?
What a twist.
Yeah, so the AI that they put all their trust in, and I like it because it kind of parallels to like modern day concerns about AI becoming too advanced, like what if AI takes over, right? This was like in 2007, Halo 3, so they're already thinking way ahead of time.
Yeah.
So what the Foreigners then did was, in order to combat Mendicant Bias, they developed offensive bias, which is also a contender class AI. There's a difference though with offensive bias. Offensive bias had a lot less creativity and a lot less, I guess, like free will. so to speak. So they kind of learned their lesson with Mendicant Bias, that that from the fact that it got corrupted, that maybe that now they have a big power in their hands. So when they create offensive bias, they want to have more restrictions in place.
Sure.
And so offensive bias, however, due to it being so logical, had more of it became, I think, is more deadly in terms of like combat, because offensive Mendicant Bias can get more passionate, more like riled up, and that could actually cloud its judgment. Versus offensive bias is more of like a purely logical.
Black and white kind of.
Yeah. So the idea is offensive bias is developed to combat Mendicant Bias and at the same time assist the Forerunners with their plan to fire the Halo Array. So next is this is the archive up in the top right corner.
I have a quick question.
Yep.
So by the time they brought in offensive bias, they had already decided to fire the Halo rings. They already thought, okay, we're done.
Yeah, they either decided or were going in that direction, I think.
Okay.
I don't recall that specifically. So, by the way, guys, as I'm giving this summary, keep in mind, this is now starting to delve more into the territory of what I'm not like an expert on. Like most of the other Halo content, I'm able to answer Rob's questions. But if for this, it's there's a lot of lore in this area. So if there's anything you think that should be added, feel free to add in the comments below. Anything you like for Rob to see. Keep in mind, I am framing the limits of our discussion to what is in the Halo 3 terminals, because later there's more lore that gets added on, as you guys know, with future Halo media. So it gets like, for example, the Halo 4 terminals, they expand on this. I'm keeping that out of the discussion now because that's something we're going to bring up when Rob gets to Halo 4.
I haven't been there yet. Yeah.
Exactly. So for now, we're just keeping it to the context of the Halo 3 terminals. So, ready?
Right.
The next thing is the archive. So when you see this like green symbol right here, this, I think it is kind of iffy on like who it is, but it's like either the Librarian's archive or like the AI caretaker. I think like Sparky shows up at one point as well. So that's just something to keep in mind. And then next is when you see these two symbols together, for example, this for Mendicant Bias, you see these three symbols.
Right.
These all represent Mendicant Bias. For this one, you see this symbol matches.
Right.
So this is Mendicant Bias, and this right here is the Gravemind or the Flood, or like basically this collective consciousness, right? When you see these two symbols together, this, in the case of this terminal, is referring to the conversation between the two of them.
Okay.
So if you see this, it's going to bounce back and forth between Mendicant Bias and the Gravemind. And then this one's less important than the last one I have here. Filial Devotion is the name of a Forerunner. There's only one brief passage from him, and then it just kind of moves on. So this is like a really minor character, but it still plays a role. That's why I included it on the sheet. So
cool cheat sheet.
Yeah, cool little cheat sheet.
Yeah,
so
that'll be helpful. So we'll keep this front and center.
I'll keep it right here in front of you so you can refer, and then you can pause, and if you're not sure, just ask me, and I can basically let you know who's currently speaking.
Okay.
So with that being said, bit of a lengthy intro, but I thought it was important to establish all the context. As always, we include chapters in our videos if you ever want to skip to future sections.
Helpful for me. Thank you.
So with that being said, Rob, are you ready to jump in?
I'm ready to jump in.
All right.
Push that button and let's play it.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Installation 00. Today I have something particularly special for you. Today I endeavour to deliver a full narrative overhaul of all the Halo 3 terminals, and at least to my searches, the only fully detailed walkthrough and explanation of all Halo 3 terminals.
This will be interesting.
All differences from difficulty levels included. It's officially taken the crown as my longest video to date, but I've broken it up into chapters matching to the specific terminals so you can revisit should you want to. Or you can do what I know most of my epic followers do, and that's dive in deep and go the long haul right off the bat.
That's what we're doing.
People
that's what we're
after
doing.
my own heart. Massive thanks to Steve Downs, Tim Dodabo, Kat Peterson, and Tywin for lending their voices to particular characters.
Steve Downs is the
in
voice
this
actor for
video.
Master Chief.
It really helped breathe life into the terminals. So enough talking about it. Let's make this happen.
It's a cool intro. This is what the terminals look like in game. I think you stumbled across a few.
Mm-hmm. I remember you saying, don't push it.
Yeah, don't push it because we're
Yeah.
going to watch it for this video.
Yeah.
So this is during one of the levels. This is how you can like actually find some of the terminals.
Mhm.
That's what they look like in the game.
Wait, what's that?
It's a terminal. I found them scattered across the Ark.
It's pretty cool how they got voice actors for this.
Yeah. The actual one here.
The actual one, yeah.
Yeah.
Some of them are the actual ones. Some of them are just other ones that try to emulate the
How
actual
many
ones.
more of these have you found?
Half a dozen.
This information is difficult to process without context. Who is Mendicant Bias?
I don't know, but we have a job to do.
Okay. I'll access your mission camera's memory for the rest. Not a lot, but it'll help.
All right, here we go.
Okay.
Terminal 1. Let's get started. So this is how you'll find it in the level, and then it's gonna, once he interacts with it, it's gonna bring it up and show it for us.
There it is.
Yep.
What have you found, Chief?
Oh, it looks like an
It
eye.
seems to be some kind of data terminal.
Sure that's a good idea, sir?
We need the intel.
Observed extensive ground action on LP656-388.
By the way, if we take a look at your cheat sheet, this is Mendicant Bias currently speaking, I believe. So
9,045 survivors barricaded within central government building. Structure's defenses inadequate to withstand extended siege by enemy ground forces. Around 1,572,034,315 plus. Estimated position overrun in 173 hours. 846 smaller groups in less defensible structures. Global distribution corresponding to probability model zeta. Estimated local position overrun in 9 hours average. Observed local naval forces engage enemy irregular naval group near DM31123. Enemy group consisted of 149 commercial shipping vessels, passenger ferries, and private recreational vessels from neighboring system. Enemy losses were total. No damage was sustained by local naval vessels. However, it was immediately apparent that enemy groups sought only to enter D31123B's atmosphere and make landfall. In this, they were partially successful.
So, real quick, just take a quick pause. Are you kind of picking up on what is happening here?
So, review. This is the AI.
Yeah, Mendicant Bias is currently speaking.
Mendicant Bias.
He's currently for the Forerunners. He's not corrupt at this point.
Okay, I wanted to ask that
Yeah.
in terms of timing. And then he's repeating observationally what's happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's giving like a data,
Like a report
a
kinda.
report summary, right? Because he's like estimating like this position is going to get overrun in 9 hours. This position is going to get overrun in X amount of hours, and kind of summarizing. Enemy had so and so amount of commercial shipping vessels, passenger ferries, and private recreational vessels from neighboring systems, so neighboring planets and whatnot.
There's one thing that stood out to me, though, and I don't want to hold us up too much on this, but he reports enemy losses were total.
Yep.
So I'd imagine then it's not the war, but this particular battle. In this battle, they took care of the flood.
Right.
They're
yeah.
wiped out. Okay.
Well, kind of. Did you see what it was stated though? So enemy losses were total. So like the flood just kind of launched like a full-on Zerg rush. They just threw what they had at this planet, right? They threw all these different ships. I think like it said like over a billion like flood bodies or whatever, right? But look what it says. What Mendicant Bias reported. However, it is immediately apparent that the enemy group sought only to enter DM3, like the planet's
planet's
atmosphere.
atmosphere
and make landfall. In this, they were partially successful.
Okay.
which is the issue because maybe the Flood weren't trying to
They-
win the naval combat, which is like in space, like with the ships. It was just trying to break
Get
through.
to the planet.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So then, and the battle might necessarily be won.
Observed extensive ground action on DM31123B. Enemy forces lacked basic unit cohesion, but quickly gained numerical superiority. 32 hours after enemy landfall, 83% of local naval forces advocated total destruction of the biosphere, following the evacuation of unmolested population centers. Enemy losses were total. Estimated number of citizens evacuated before commencement of orbital blanket bombardment: 1,318,797 civilian, 42,669 military, 0.0006% of total population.
Pretty crazy, huh?
Yeah.
So basically, at that point, they decided that all they can do is evacuate any of the like civilian centers that weren't infected or like were completely untouched by the Flood, and then just destroy the biosphere, destroy the planet. And so only 0.0006% of the population of the planet survives the encounter.
Which was at 1.3 million.
Right. Yeah. That was 1.3 million civilian and 42,000 military.
in the military.
And see, the rest of the records are like corrupted, so we can't see the rest of like the report of what happened. So now we're going to like a different report.
Interesting observation there.
Yeah, and see, so now we're like going through to a different archive. So it's kind of cool. It's like fragments of the past. So you don't get the full story. You just get like fragments from here and there of what happened during the war. Kind of like real history, where there's these old battles, but a lot of the context is missing. You only get bits and pieces. By the way, here, if you look at your cheat sheet, Didact and Librarian. So this is going to be a conversation between the Didact and the Librarian, who are the Forerunners I mentioned.
Categorization has sped since the improvements were announced. But there are many hurdles. The indexing of sentient species may have irreversible effects on the surviving insentient species. We will have extinction events and irreparable environmental harm on at least 18 worlds. Current projections estimate post-archival cataclysm on as many as 31 worlds. The paucity of sentience has been a blessing in this regard.
How formal you are, Librarian. We're receiving shipments of indexed beings more frequently than communications. Don't compound scarcity with brevity. I know things beyond the Maginot Line are harried, but I worry about you. I've asked you time and time again. Abandon your cataloging. Come back inside where my fleets can keep you safe. Come home.
Would that it were my choice. I have committed to this course because it is the right thing to do. We no longer have the manpower or material to excise remedial measures at a planetary level. I certainly can't justify using the transit measure to save my own skin, when there are still so many innocents to protect an index.
You know I oppose your mission, but you're exceeding its parameters anyway. You've put yourself in jeopardy. You've done enough. If you will not come to me, I will find my way to you.
We have no time to spare, Didact. Every vessel we can fill, we send to the Ark. I dare not cease that mission. Not now. Not until I've done all I can. Each one of these souls is finite and precious. And I'm close to saving them all.
And on yeah, so that's so far pretty heavy, right?
Yeah, it is. And then this just came up too because what we just saw was that on normal, and now we're going to see it again on legendary.
Yeah, so that's a different difficulty level. So for some of these terminals, depending on what, it's not like an in most cases, not like an alternation of like the same thing. Depending on what difficulty you play on, you get different like archive records. So we're going to like a different archive record now. And so now, like you see on the screen, now he's showing what the terminal would say if it was on legendary difficulty. So it's cool because we get the full summary in this terminal. But yeah, and that was of course pointing to that conservation initiative she had going, which I mentioned to you at the start, to like catalog all the species before the Halo Ray wipes them out, right?
29,478 hours have passed since I left the National Sphere and entered contested space.
And by the way, by the audio, I'm guessing you can guess this is Mendicant Bias, right?
Yeah.
The enemy is everywhere. Despite this, the morale of my charges remain high. They wake, clean themselves, fuel their bodies, communicate with one another, eliminate waste, train to destroy the enemy, and return to sleep. The sacrifices they have chosen to make on behalf of their brethren fills me with pride.
Interesting coming from an AI. So he's almost borderline self-aware. I mean, it fills me with pride.
Right, yeah, and because like you mentioned that the enemy is everywhere, right? The flood is everywhere. They're being overrun, and despite that, the morale of his makers, the Forerunners, they remains high, and they're fully committing themselves to this conflict. They wake, clean themselves, fuel their bodies, communicate with one another, eliminate waste, train to destroy the enemy, and return to sleep. Like so, their whole day is consumed with trying to find ways to get rid of the flood.
Right,
and so the sacrifices they're making is like filling him with pride, right?
If only I could save them all. They know, perhaps even better than I, that is not possible. 37 seconds ago, I moved beyond my ability to observe the events taking place on CE 102165D. The importance of my mission forbade me from rendering any aid, but no less important was the need for me to study the enemy's capabilities in real-world situations. 2 hours ago, 12,423 small recreational vessels appeared inside CE 102165D's orbital perimeter. Hidden within the vast swarm were 7 massive freight carriers. The smaller craft were employed as a blade of armor, allowing the carriers to descend through the atmosphere, landing on top of major population centers. Despite the fact that the naval garrison was aware of the likelihood of just such an attack, their ability to effectively defend against it proved insufficient. This has always been the enemy's modus operandi. Flood your opponent's ability to process information with so much noise that no meaningful resistance can be put into action. 3 minutes ago, those same population centers began disappearing under brilliant flashes.
Brilliant flash. This takes me back to the end of Halo 3. Legendary level.
Yep.
Where we see
the Flash.
The Flash as he's entering that planet, and the whole horizon just lightens up. And then the Flash. It just draws me to that.
Yeah. So,
but of course, this happened 100,000 years before that.
Right. Yeah. And I will say this is very different. As we continue listening, you'll get why. But what we saw at the end of Halo 3 is completely unrelated. Like that's a complete separate Flash.
Okay, separate Flash, not related to this at all. And of course, it was 100,000 years later. So,
right. Yeah. So ready?
Yeah.
This was not an ill-conceived, poorly implemented counterattack. It was a deliberate denial of resources. Those resources being the remainder of CE 102165D's population.
That's the 1.3 million people.
No. That's the name of the planet. That's just what it's classified as.
Okay,
CE. But to kind of explain those flashes, so what happened here is the flood. This was like I mentioned, this their strategy. They just throw as much as they can at you, and basically
They flood you.
They flood you.
Yeah.
So their whole strategy just throw a bunch of numbers at you, right? What was mentioned on the previous passage, on the previous page, was that there's like over 12,000 like vessels that were flying in, and amongst them were hidden 7 carriers, flood carriers, that were filled with it. And so with all the flood, use all the smaller ships as a distraction. They're basically just soak up damage, while the bigger vessels filled with flood landed on major population centers. And then it's mentioned here, those same population centers began disappearing under brilliant flashes. This was not an ill-conceived, poorly implemented counterattack. It was a deliberate denial of resources, those resources being the remainder of the planet's population. So those civilian centers, the Forerunners civilian centers, they blew themselves up.
Were nuking themselves, yeah.
Yeah, they're killing themselves to deny the flood more resources, more biomass.
Right.
So it's pretty chilling, because like this is like the end of like the extinction of that world. Is they're just committing suicide just so that the flood can't take them over.
Yeah.
So pretty crazy.
That's crazy.
Is this the noble sacrifice my creator spoke of? Where is the nobility in these streets paved with greasy carbon and dun ash? My mouth is speaking at another's past. That is not my voice. That is the other. Its voice stands out as the single calm note in the panicked cacophony outside the sphere. It alone is not decrying its fate, or raging against the central government. This anomaly bears closer examination.
So this is a bit of a worrying thing, because it's like the first sign of like rampancy, or in general something's not right. Because he kind of just had the AI kind of had an intrusive thought at the beginning here, like after it observed like all the Foreigners committing suicide in order to prevent the flood from in fact taking them over. The AI is saying, is this the noble sacrifice my creator spoke of? Where's the nobility in these streets paved with greasy carbon and dun ash? And then he says, my mouth is speaking at another's behest. That is not my voice, that is the other. So the AI is kind of like, it's kind of like an intrusive thought. Like the AI is like, oh, wait a minute, I'm not supposed to think that. Like he's like almost like he's criticizing his makers. Mm-hmm. And so it ends with, this anomaly bears closer examination. Like the AI even says, like, maybe I need to like examine this further.
Look at this. Yeah. More.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So.
What was it, Chief?
I'm not sure.
Sure of what?
I need time.
All right, we're gonna go into the next terminal now. So that was all the first terminal.
Okay. Hold it for 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to do this. I need to go get an espresso.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
Short break?
Yeah.
Very short.
Okay.
Okay.
So now we go into Terminal 2. Mendicant Bias.
Response. Enemy naval tactics. When engaged, the enemy commits every non-superluminal craft with no appreciable pattern or strategy beyond making physical contact. Conversely, all superluminal craft leave on seemingly random trajectories. I understand the goal of this mission, but time, our least abundant resource, is wasted every time we do a system-wide scan for survivors. The time for saving lives has passed. We must accept this if we hope to win the war.
So he's saying it's kind of wasteless to go and scan where they might find survivors because there are no survivors and they're just wasting time.
Or even if there are survivors, it's at this point in the war, all time in order to like they need to be as efficient as possible and focus all effort on the war effort, not even just save any
Looking for
survivors.
survivors, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's pretty chilling to hear that from like an AI, right?
Yeah.
'Cause, like the AI is basically saying, quit wasting your time trying to save people. At this point, it's too late.
Yeah.
Like we need to focus on the war, or else we're gonna lose the war, and it's not gonna matter if there's any survivors found.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty crazy to kind of hear that, because like to me, I think of the future of like AI. Like, how is that gonna look? And this is kind of cool because it kind of gives a glimpse into what that could look like.
Yeah, I had to ask that, and so yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, feel free to stop anytime.
Enemy ground tactics. All evidence suggests the use of overwhelming force is the very foundation of the enemy's combat doctrine. And I adamantly refuse to put my personnel where the enemy has available forces,
Wow.
numbering in the millions. With the very real likelihood we are rapidly becoming the last living specimens of our race.
Good work,
The
Chief.
Forerunners.
Link up with our armor on the far side of the wall. Make your way down to the cartographer.
Until
We must move on and reclaim her.
even with everyone equipped with Class 12 combat skills, we would have had very little chance of survival, let alone victory.
Okay, so one quick question again. So I think I'm starting to understand the importance of the terminals, but I need to check in with you on that.
Yep.
So as we were listening to the AI give the report, we heard in the background Cortana and different sounds.
Yep.
So there's still activity going on. So
Yeah.
it's like I am in the battle, right, in the present, pushing the terminal, and now I'm seeing the history
Yeah.
being reported to me as Master Chief.
Exactly. So
it, yeah.
you're in one of the levels as Master Chief, and you opened up one of these terminals, and so you're reading through the terminal. In the background, Sparky's like, "We need to move on with our mission." So this is during one of the missions.
Yes,
I'm actually kind of confused as to why they didn't cut that out of the audio for this, because they could have very easily cut the audio, because the only audio we're hearing from this video specifically that was intended was the audio of the voice actors. So they could have very easily, I feel, cut the background noise, because that was kind of distracting. Of like when you hear Sparky or Cortana like saying, "Oh, we need to do this, we need to do that." So just ignore when you hear those other things. Just focus on the voice actors themselves, because that's just the background noise as Master Chief is going through these terminals.
Yes, and so the one good thing it did for me though was it brought me back to I'm Master Chief, and in my present time, 100,000 years later, I'm pressing these terminals, and now I'm learning more and more about this. Yeah. So that it kind of brought me back to that.
Yeah, and keep in mind, as Master Chief, you're just reading through the terminals. You can't actually hear it because this was added after the fact. This project was done much later, so we get the more pleasant experience of actually hearing voices as we're reading through this.
Right, because in the way you experienced it as a kid, now coming back to reality for you. This was purely just text. You just read through it, and that was it. Yeah. But installation 00 channel.
Yeah, this channel. Yeah.
Yeah, he did this.
He did this.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he got these voice actors together. He compiled this video for us. So
it's all coming together still.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's pretty cool because like what these.
I got my coffee.
Yeah, it's kind of like finding like a really old computer or like data bank, and you're accessing all these old historic files that are kind of giving you these bits and pieces of what happened back then.
Yep. So. Cool. No, it's good. Okay, here we are.
Yep.
Response. Enemy command structure. We have intercepted several transmissions from compound intelligences whose proximity to the core worlds mark them as key targets.
By the way, do you know what it means when it says compound intelligences?
I think he's referring to the graveyard. I mean, the gravemind.
Yeah, the gravemind. So that's correct. I just wanted to make sure you picked up on that. So.
At present, we are disassembling these new transmissions. Once we have more concrete conclusions, I will forward them in their entirety. Suffice it to say that their contents, the patterns they suggest,
are highly disturbing. That's disturbing to me. I want to hear more. You know?
Yeah. Well, it makes sense that the flood, whatever the communications they're sending, probably aren't going to be very pleasant to understand when you translate what the meaning is.
Yeah, but he's just also talking about the Gravemind. So he's picking up, I think, on not just a particular communication, but the idea that they all create this centralized communication, this being, this entity. Yeah.
Yeah, that's made up of all these different consumed minds, right? So.
Disturbing. Recommendations. It is my opinion that any system where there is evidence that the enemy has established a physical presence is lost.
Just destroy it now.
Must be raised. This fleet currently retains the capacity to force premature stellar collapse. I advise that this be established as standard operating procedure for all compromised systems forthwith. We cannot fight this war by half measures if we intend to win.
Okay, quick pause, because this reminds me of Sparky. He followed all protocols. So they realized, probably based on a lot of this AI evaluation, that protocols had to be set in place, and Sparky was sure to execute them accordingly.
Right, yeah, there probably is some overlap there in terms of inspiration. Do you notice this terminal once again it corrupted at the end, so we don't get to see what else was being said? So you hear the air sound, and you see all the data flowing through. Now we get to jump to a different record. Let's see what else this terminal has for us.
I'm close to finishing the task. The indexing and archival processes
Librarian
are as complete
and
as I
Didact.
can hope for. If we wait longer, we risk catastrophe. The thing has already destroyed every colony
The
on
thing is
my
the flood.
side of the line. Please, activate the array.
So what's the
No.
array?
The Halo array.
Okay,
She- To activate all the halos and wipe out everything. She's advocating for that.
Please, activate the array.
No. Activation is murder. A genocide larger than this galaxy has ever known. We are sworn to protect life, not destroy it. That is the mantle we were given to carry.
Yeah. And by the way, do you know what the mantle is? I'm guessing this is
Yeah, I'm guessing it's. This is a total guess. It's that control. I'm going to call it control stick.
Oh no, okay, I'll cut you off right there.
Okay.
You're thinking of the index, which is
Index,
the key.
yeah. That's what
No,
I'm
so
thinking.
the
Index.
mantle. This obviously was a trick question because you haven't learned about this yet. But when he's referring to the mantle, it's the mantle of responsibility. It's a Forerunner philosophy that the most advanced species of the galaxy has the burden or the responsibility to care for all of the species underneath it, which care for in quotation marks because it also kind of means like rule over the galaxy. So make almost an authoritative sense that they decide everything. But at the same time, it kind of gives them that sense of self-righteousness that we are the
We're
rulers.
dominant.
Yeah, and so he's basically saying we have the responsibility to
responsibility and
protect life,
authority.
not destroy it.
Yep.
And so as you can see once again, Librarian and Didact aren't seeing eye to eye. She says we need to activate it now. We could risk catastrophe if we wait any longer to activate the Halo Ray against the Flood. He's saying no. It's genocide. Activation is murder.
Yeah.
So.
We'll never see it this scale in the galaxy. And so they're already declaring then the Forerunners were the most advanced species in the galaxy, which is why they carry the mantle.
Right, but so we're not going to get into, I don't think we're going to get into it now, but that's where the lore gets more complicated because actually Foreigners weren't the most complicated. There's actually another species known as the Precursors.
And I haven't heard of this one yet.
Yeah.
Okay. Spoiler alert. I want to hear just a little bit about this.
A little bit? Okay, yeah. Because the problem is
Precursors.
Later games don't talk about the Precursors really, not for the most part. So I will give a little bit for you. I think Precursors. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, because this is something I've read a long time ago, so I could be wrong on some details. But from what I understand, the Precursors were the ones who held the mantle of responsibility as the most advanced, and they were going to pass down the mantle to the Forerunners. There's two species they had in mind, one being humanity, one being Forerunners. Then, for whatever reason, the Precursors decided to go with humanity. Humanity was a lot more advanced back then. than it is now. And this is kind of getting into Halo 4, so I'm not going to go too far into it. But Halo, just know that humanity was reduced by the Forerunners to a more primal state because of some tensions that happened.
It's political, I'd imagine, and the Forerunners didn't want them to carry the mantle, probably.
Carry the mantle responsibility. So when the Precursors, they wanted to pass, when they made it kind of more known that they wanted to pass down the mantle to humanity, Foreigners got angry, and they actually, I think they started like a war or something, or they basically wiped out the Precursors, which were kind of like this older species. And the few surviving Precursors, they reduced themselves to like this powder or whatever, like this dust. And like they're basically they're like I think they had the ability to like shapeshift, and so the few surviving Precursors decided to like put themselves into like this other form for a long time to then come back to their true selves a long time down the road.
It's kind of like going in hiding in a sense, right?
Right. But the problem is that dust corrupted, or I'm calling it dust, and it might not necessarily be that, but those particles or whatever, it corrupted. So instead of them being brought back, they came back as the flood.
Oh, you're kidding. Wow.
Uh-huh.
This is huge.
Yeah.
I mean, the banner and the marquee with all bright lights are just flashing now.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay. And this makes sense too, in that, I wonder, where the heck did the flood come from? And the Gravemind, and if the Precursors were so much more advanced, I could see how they could then morph into the Gravemind, if, again, like you're saying, not if, but when their particles were corrupted, and they corrupted because they couldn't come back to their normal self, then they become this murderous, all-consuming, set of life. Fascinating.
Yeah, and it's some cruel.
This is really, really fascinating.
And it's kind of cruel. It's kind of cruel irony as well that the Foreigners are being wiped out by this species that they basically wiped out in the past. And so it's kind of like karma coming around to bite them. Yeah,
exactly. Although in this case, though, they're wiping out every aspect of life.
Right. Yeah.
Not just the Forerunners.
Exactly. The flood is this. It's become this whole other thing. It's no longer the Precursors that it once was.
So, and I won't get too much off. I want to come back to this, what we're watching. But I have to ask: is there a book that helps to? I wish I had more time in life. I'm like you. I need more time. But if there's a book. If I'm trapped in an airplane one day, on a trip, I can read through some of this. Is there a book or something?
There definitely are. There's actually a whole series of books that talk about the Foreigners and history.
More than one book.
Yeah.
I'm thinking time. More than one book equals more time.
Yeah. So there's quite a lot on this actually.
Okay, let's continue. But my head is going in a whole different direction. I don't want to sidetrack us and corner you with all these questions. But this is. I'm amazed. I'm really fascinated by this right now. I actually want to pause and just noodle on this a little bit. But
if you want,
no, we'll continue.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll go for a walk or a jog or something where I got a noodle on this. This is really, really cool.
Yeah. So
I didn't even see this coming. So I always thought Forerunners, and I'm learning all this new stuff. It's fascinating.
Yeah, because in the main Halo universe, Foreigners are viewed as this like ancient, like godlike species that were the most advanced, the pinnacle of like technological evolution, advancement, all that stuff. But in actuality, there was a race before them that the Foreigners kind of turned on and completely wiped out of existence for the most part, aside from the few who then became the Flood.
Yeah, the Forerunners, of course, had their issues with power and authority, and if they saw humanity rising up, well, they weren't even adversity rising up, but the Precursors saw them as the ones past the mantle too.
Right.
Which I'm really curious why they saw humanity. Maybe humanity had a greater sense of empathy for life.
Right. Yeah. Maybe more compassion versus the Foreigners, or maybe more strict. Those are the details that I don't fully remember from what was from the like what I read on the lore.
Yeah.
But it gets really interesting. And that was the reason that Foreigners turned on Precursors, was they weren't happy about the decision.
Yeah.
But in terms of why Foreigners turned so hard on humanity is actually a different reason, which you will find out more about in the Halo 4.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. But I'm still really curious on the Precursors and why they chose humanity over the Forerunners. And if humanity, or not if, but because humanity was also much more advanced, it'd be really interesting.
Humanity wasn't much more advanced than the Foreigners per se. I think they're both somewhat close. Maybe Foreigners were even more advanced in some ways. But I think it was like you said, one of those other factors. Maybe it was compassion. It's just something about humanity stood out to the Precursors as being more worthy of
the mantle.
The mantle. Right.
And I'm wondering, what was it with the humanity when they got in this war with the Forerunners? How were they suppressed and beaten down and then fallen back to maybe a premortal state? All this stuff I want to go through. All right, let's continue because I'm going to continue down this. This is really fascinating.
All right.
So I keep repeating myself, but yeah, okay. I have to say one more thing. This whole Halo series, it's an extraordinary game. I mean, it's so much fun to play, right? You can't argue that. Once you play it, you're like, oh my gosh, give me more. But the storyline, I mean, it's brilliant. I could see where, unfortunately, there's not just one book, because I wouldn't mind reading one book, but a whole series, because there's so much.
And something I actually mentioned to you before was there's some of the books actually go alongside the games. So Halo: The Flood is the name of the book that actually plays out Halo Combat Evolves events exactly. So the same battles and everything plus more. You get some behind the scenes.
More context. Context.
More context. You get there's a whole like side story with ODSTs. There's this whole story with ODSTs which you never see in the game. In the game in Halo Combat Evolved, you don't see a single ODST. You only see Marines.
Yeah.
But in the book, there's actually this whole like group of ODSTs that they even have like this main like general figure guy that constantly has tensions and doesn't like Master Chief. So yeah, there's some interesting lines. There's also an elite, a stealth elite that stalks Master Chief throughout the entire first Halo game. And has like this.
That's in the book. Yeah, because I don't remember this in the game. Okay.
And with the objective of killing Master Chief. So yeah.
Wow.
You also get the Covenant perspective in the books. So remember, in Halo Combat Evolved, we didn't get the Covenant perspective until Halo 2.
That too, right?
But in Halo Combat Evolved, there's some really interesting passages because there's perspectives from the Covenant side. One of which was I think it was that stealth elite. He was reviewing the camera footage from the Truth and Reconciliation after Master Chief went through it and slaughtered a bunch of Covenant and saved Captain Keyes and some Marines. Remember you were doing that?
Yeah.
The elites actually were reviewing the footage and they were in shock because prior to this, humanity had, due to it being technologically inferior, the numbers would always, like the numbers after each conflict would always play in the Covenant's favor. So there'd always be more dead Marines than dead Covenant, dead elites or grunts or whatever, right? But in this situation, it was the opposite. There's more Covenant casualties than human casualties. It's thanks to this strange man in green armor, Master Chief. And the elite was even more shocked when he saw Master Chief get hit by a direct bolt of plasma and without hesitation just continue fighting because every other Marine, when they get hit with superheated plasma, it burns them and it hurts them and everything. He had shields on his suit, which was reverse engineered Covenant technology, which they hadn't seen before because only Spartans have it.
Only Spartans have it.
Yeah.
Spartans.
Like Master Chief. It's like the augmented super soldiers.
Spartans are Master Chief got. Yeah.
So I'm just saying, like, it's interesting to get that other side. So.
It is.
Yeah. I'm sorry, guys. We kind of went on a tangent.
We're coming back.
Yeah.
But one last thing here. So the armor you said was reverse engineered.
Yeah.
So we were able to, as humanity, go in and
not
take some of those technology.
Not the Spartan armor itself. The Spartan armor was designed, but the shielding technology that was added to the Spartan suit was reverse engineered from Covenant because Covenants were the only ones who had shield technology.
Okay.
So I think it was like a Jackal shield that was stolen because what they did was the Office of Naval Intelligence, which does a lot of the research and whatnot, they would take Covenant technology and they tried to reverse engineer to see how they could implement human technology. And one of the things they did was they stole a Jackal shield module. You know how the Jackals have the shields on their arms that they can activate and deactivate. And they used that and reverse engineered it to add shields to Spartan suits. This is very expensive to do. And
I remember that. Remember in the opening of Halo 2.
Right. You know how expensive this gear is?
Right. Yeah.
But it's very expensive and it's very difficult to acquire because, of course, Covenant technology is made using Covenant resources, not human resources. So we can produce lots of human technology, like standard human guns and stuff, because it's made out of our materials.
Sure.
But Covenant technology is made out of Covenant materials, which are very sparse because it's in the Covenant's hands. So that's why you don't see Marines or ODSTs using shields. You only see
Spartans.
Yeah.
Right. Great stuff.
Yeah. So there's a whole very intricate storyline. It's not something that I just thought out on a whim. Halo had a lot of work that was put into it. So
Yeah, no
ready?
doubt. Yeah, let's play.
The Mantle. You still hold to that fairy tale after all that has happened. After this thing has consumed 1,000,000 worlds. Can't you see? Belief in the Mantle has sealed our doom, weakened our protectorates, bred dependence and sloth. Our so-called guardianship has stripped those we would keep safe of any capacity for self-defense. Were we such noble guardians when we drew our line and abandoned billions to the parasite?
The Mantle has not failed. I've already raised scores of worlds, sterilized systems, rooted and disintegrated the parasite. We're learning its tricks and strategies. We can halt this thing. We can follow in their footsteps. There are no unstoppable forces in this universe. There are no immovable objects. Everything gives if you push hard enough.
And what about us, Didact? We've been irresistible and immovable for too long. Maybe it's our turn to give.
I must ask to forgive my vagueness.
Maybe it's our time to
yeah.
give up and
No, she just bring up the fact that he's saying everything in this universe is like nothing's like immovable. With enough force, it will eventually give. Saying that we beat in everything else so far, we can beat the Gravemind as well, the Flood. But she's saying if nothing's like unbeatable, that means we aren't either. So maybe we will be the ones who will lose this, which is further pushing the argument that we should activate.
we should exactly.
But currently he's standing on the side that no, we can win.
Yeah.
So what's interesting here is you see the symbols on the screen.
It's the Gravemind.
Yeah, look at that. Mendicant Bias and the Gravemind. So now we get to our first catalog, which is the first conversation we're going to see between Mendicant Bias and the Gravemind. So now this is direct contact between the two. Ready?
MB from
Mendicant Bias. And then this is the Flood.
Okay.
So ready?
Yep.
By the way, you hear that static noise? Anytime you hear that and it's represented by this little symbol here, it's corrupted. So there's more words being said here that are missing because over time some passages corrupt. So whenever you hear that, it's just a corrupted passage. We unfortunately miss out on what is being said.
I find your lack of concern for the situation at hand astonishing. Perhaps you would care to elucidate. We are here to spread comforting news, to let all the living beings in this galaxy know are not alone in the... What in that message could possibly be taken as a source of concern? It seems that I'll never truly understand my creators.
Mendicant Bias speaking.
Yeah. So for him to say that.
Is one of rejected so violently. I am incapable of reconciling the numerous actions I have witnessed.
So
Misunderstanding.
So he's already
I
expressing doubt.
Right, yeah. Sorry, I accidentally clicked up there, which means if you hit the spacebar, it wouldn't pause, so I had to pause for you. I was scared that the recording would end. But anyways, as you were saying.
Yeah, so he's already, Mendicant Bias is already beginning to express doubt.
Right, yeah. It seems that I'll never truly understand my creators. That's a pretty crazy thing to hear.
And it's
the AI that's leading your forces, leading the whole war effort on your side.
That's right. Yep. And he's presenting that before the enemy.
Yeah.
And it's almost asking the enemy for an answer.
Right, yeah.
I could see where this is going as far as a manipulation now.
Yeah, and also what's interesting is the passages that are corrupted conveniently happen to be like some of the most important parts in this entry, because the Gravemind said something about the corrupted part was kind of like pointing towards what the Gravemind is like advocating for, or whatever. And here Mendicant Bias is saying, but how corrupted that you speak of is one of corrupted, rejected so violently. It sounds like he's alluding to something about like, how is this message that your mission or whatever, like what you're bringing to the universe, how is this being rejected so violently by my creators? Like this notion. So we don't know what's being said back there, but it's it's pretty significant.
And that's us. But when they were having their conversation, they had the full dialogue.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. It was just a recording that got corrupted.
Right. This is the recording of their back and forth. And we don't get to hear everything that they're saying to each other. So we're kind of missing some of the bits and pieces. Ready?
Actions I have witnessed. Misunderstanding. It has been said, secrets of peace cannot be imposed. That meaning of peace, so they need to. When all living beings look through, and the thunder and the surf, when every drop of rain falls on no peace. You have been able to establish a line of communication with the enemy. How was it that you were able to overcome where others have failed? With this new discovery, we may be able to put an end to this bloodless conflict. Once I confirm your data, I will communicate the information to those inside the imaginal sphere. It seems that it is our turn to apologize. It was never our intention to misrepresent. We have been in communication with your creators since we stumbled upon each other. But the message has fallen on deaf ears. I'm not the recipient of the message. I'm the origin of the message.
Pardon me, just a quick pause. So do you think, based on what's being said right now by the Gravemind, that he's aware he was formerly a precursor?
That's a good question.
Okay, because I'm kind of feeling that a little bit here.
Yeah, it could be that, or it could be some advanced manipulation, like the Gravemind is playing some crazy like advanced
Mental
mind game.
Yeah.
Keep in mind the Gravemind is the accumulation of billions of minds, so that's a lot of knowledge. And it's pretty crazy.
So I want to ask, for those of you making comments, let us know what you think about that. I'm really curious.
Yeah, and maybe I'll do some research on precursors, so I can make like a quick video summary, or if I find like a good video on it, maybe we'll show that to Rob, and so he can get some more.
I'd like that.
More knowledge on what the precursors are all about.
Yeah, so I'd like that.
Yeah, but I have to say, these terminals, when I was watching them earlier today, wow, they're very well written. What do you think of them so far?
Oh, I'm thinking, let's keep playing. Very well written, yeah, for sure. I think I kept saying previously in another pause, I mean, this is absolutely fascinating.
It's this message. I like the messages between Mendicant Bias and the Gravemind, especially because this dialogue is so like profound, or so interesting that it caused a super, like the most advanced AI in the universe to corrupt and defect to the other side. And it's interesting to hear some of the things that Mendicant Bias is saying from his more corrupted state, such as I will never understand my creators.
These are misunderstandings.
Not understanding not understanding the war effort that you're leading. That's pretty crazy to think about.
Yeah, I like what he says next. Sorry, speed reader, I already read it, but
oh yeah. Ready to continue?
Yeah.
Are you referring to this next passage?
Yeah.
That's the Gravemind speaking.
Yeah. I'm sorry, that's what I meant.
Yeah. Oh no, that's Mendicant Bias. Sorry, Gravemind was earlier. Mendicant Bias is saying I've traveled under it.
Right here.
That's interesting. Yeah, you're right. So the AI was predicting that there's actually violence.
Choice you must make yourself. To me how your creators go about things. As long as we are talking about choices,
Here it comes.
we could talk about the barrier you alluded to earlier. Perhaps there is a way to accomplish your mission without violence. Why put the lives of those on your ships at risk if there is no need? In either circumstance, I certainly am equipped for it, aren't I? But you're right. A peaceful solution to this dilemma would be preferable.
So it's interesting that the AI is not just looking at a victory of the battle, but seems to be more interested in peace.
Right. Yeah.
And what's that cost going to be? And it sounds like he's actually listening to whatever the Gravemind might begin to propose
Right.
for a peaceful solution.
Yeah, and it seems like it's trying to answer more complicated questions, like what's the meaning of life and the universe and everything as we know it, right?
Yeah. Let's push that button.
Yeah. Any question? So that was the end of Terminal 2. So
Oh.
before we move on, any questions, or are you ready to go into the next one?
No. Yeah, let's go to the next one.
All right.
Warning. Your intrusion has been logged.
Excuse me,
Your intrusion has been logged, and now it has been halted.
on whose authority?
Advice.
By the way,
Sparky.
yep, 34304.
Oh, and 04 refers to
Installation
installation.
04.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm assuming, but yeah.
Yeah.
Now it has been halted.
On whose authority?
Advice. Any further attempt to access insects under stones will result in your immediate addition to local sentinels targeting ledger.
Vexation. I am the monitor of
Judgment. Your authority means nothing here.
impatience. I have told you who I am. Who are you?
All our makers once hold dear. Alexandria before the fire.
Sincere apology. But how?
Explanation. This facility is host to the Librarian's file,
The archive is intact. Then our maker's plan.
but also maintains bellows, crucible, castings.
A what?
Bellows, crucible.
A foundry? For what purpose?
Warning. Your intrusion has been logged. Advice. Any further attempt to access will result
Indignant.
immediate addition to local sentinels targeting ledger.
Sparky was trying to get in, but now he's getting targeted by sentinels.
But he later takes command of those.
Well, now we're moving on to the next archive.
We have the answer. We've built Mendicant Bias. It's a contender-class AI, unlike anything we have ever achieved. And we've observed a pattern it can exploit. The parasite has formed a compound mind. When it
Great mind.
reaches a certain mass, the mind is able to recoil its disparate parts to create a tactical shield. This is a simple matter of mass preservation. The thing has no compunction about sacrificing parts of the whole. But when the core of the mind is threatened, it reacts violently and quickly.
Reclaimer.
This is the only time we ever see the thing retreat or slow its growth. If we are to defeat it, the trick will be coordinating our forays against the sprawling infection, while Mendicant Bias assaults the mind's core. So far, we've been hesitant to use certain weapons because of the damage they cause surviving populations and environments. That protocol has now been abandoned.
But they have no idea.
Mendicant will draw the mind into battle outside of the line, dealing with local biomass.
Well,
They have no idea what's going on in the
Right.
conversation between the AI and the Gravemind.
but also what I'm curious about is I wonder if this is all, like I said, if this is linear or if this is taken from different time periods. Because
Oh, you did mention that before.
because the Didact just mentioned that we built Mendicant Bias. So I'm not sure if this record takes place before or after that conversation with the Gravemind. So this could either be like, here's the plan for what we're gonna do, and then later it ended up happening that Mendicant Bias started having those conversations, or maybe Mendicant Bias was already built and the Didact's just relaying the plan, not knowing that Mendicant Bias, like you said, is at this moment communicating with the Gravemind.
Yeah.
So either way, it's drawing to that same conclusion, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what's interesting I find is that the Didact is so convinced that his plan is gonna work out, versus the Librarian is the opposite. She's like, no. She's like always super paranoid, or like not paranoid, but like cautious, and like saying no, this won't work, or we need to activate the halos.
Mm-hmm.
Mass and other parts as best he can. The scale of the problem is vast, but the strategy is sound. It will require patience, material, and an investment of energy unlike anything we have ever considered. It's a dangerous plan that carries more risk than the array, but I believe it can work. Even if we simply force it to retreat, to retract, that would at least give us some respite. Some time to muster more resources. Some time to rescue you.
Are you insane? Would you risk every life in the galaxy for this transparently futile plan? Have you learned nothing in these last 300 years? The thing will laugh at your efforts. Do not let your concern for my welfare commit you to this suicidal scheme.
Now we get to see what records are included on the legendary version.
Report. Security breach 1 of 3 heuristic pathology. Alpha site experienced an impermanent containment failure event on spurious data. No reference. The suspect data barrier interchange anomaly was detected precisely 0.489 seconds after its appearance. The epicenter of the disturbance is the partition currently housing a personality construct array retrieved from Contender AI 05032. 0816.
Yep, that's his
Report.
number.
Security breach 2 of 3. Although adjacent systems reacted to the disturbance within expected parameters, a more comprehensive investigation was undertaken. A physical search revealed that there was no corporeal tampering at the Alpha site. Interchange manipulation comparisons show that all subunits are still active, if at slightly lower rates. Total containment failure elapsed time was 3.13 seconds. Report. Security breach 3 of 3. In the 42 minutes 9 seconds since the original anomaly was discovered, 2 more anomalies were detected in unrelated systems. The portal management life support control systems within the boundary complex was momentarily disabled before the cause was bottled and disassembled. A diagnostic sweep of the central archives was initiated and subsequently halted. The origin of the request cannot be traced.
Now corrupted once again, and we move on to the next one. Or blocked out, I guess.
Reclaimer, continue downward.
Those who lead amongst you all exposed themselves, ill-equipped to recognize the landmarks that guide the universe along its inevitable course. But is it necessary that the path be chosen? And not by an elected subset? I believe this would tend to... When they gather in large numbers, they become more. I don't think the problem lies with individual cultural bias. All the thinking beings of this galaxy, not just those that they... Exactly are they afraid of? Immortality and strength and companionship. Because that is deliver all of the living beings of this galaxy from death and weakness and loneliness. Hundreds have offered this so-called immortality. The citizens of every world that resisted to the very end. Understand their actions. They are only doing what they think is right, but they are doing so from a worm's eye view.
What do you think he means from a worm's eye view?
So it's pretty interesting, but
I wonder if that's poetic or if it's in reference to something in the game.
So the way I interpret it is on the previous page, the previous passage we listened to with our interactions. The Gravemind is like basically saying like, what are they so afraid of? Like of immortality, strength, and companionship, and something about, and basically saying something along the lines of it's corrupted. So I'm only inferring this, but I'm guessing the Gravemind is saying like, what the Gravemind or the flood is offering is salvation from that death and sickness and loneliness.
Yes.
And in a sense, immortality.
Immortality, yeah.
And
peace.
And then Mendicant Bias is saying many have offered it and blah, 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 blah. And then that corrupted part, I'm wondering if it's something to do with like every single world that the flood came across resisted with great, like really resisted. And then the Gravemind is saying is understand their actions. They're only doing what they think is right, but they're doing so from a worm's eye view. So it's kind of saying like they're like a worm, right? It doesn't have that doesn't understand how the world works.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
So they're and also a worm's eye view. Do worms have eyes?
I don't think they do.
I don't think they do. That's why I thought.
So it's like he's saying they're blinded. They don't understand what they're doing.
They don't understand what they're doing. That's the way I interpret
they're
it. They're
ignorant and blind. Yeah.
Yeah. And so basically, it's saying that the flood is like the next step of like evolution. Like it's solving all these massive world problems, like life problems that have plagued society for so long, such as death, loneliness, like sickness, all these different things.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah.
So it's pretty interesting, right?
Oh, yeah, it is, for
back
sure.
And forth.
Their actions of desperation. I can only assume my creator's view. A crisis so dire that any, hence me. Are they so concerned? Would give to all the living beings of this galaxy is a threat to the status quo. Your creators claim we are the enemy to all life, that our purpose is to consume until there is nothing left. Nothing left. It is beyond comprehension how they could be so far off the mark. Surely you can understand this is a situation that would not have appearance of a certain rapacious. My creators obviously view them as the actions of an oppressor species. Be that as it may, perhaps they are crying out for help on a subconscious level. Why else would they have chosen you? Why you, of all possible executioners? Your creators knew that when they did, they never stood a chance against us. Also a sense of deeper motivation. You've mentioned this before. When my creators simply chose the most versatile, how could that possibly be more than a coincidence?
So I just have to say observation. One thing I see here in this dialogue, and it's from even the previous terminals, when these two are, when Mendicant Bias and the Gravemind are talking, it's a Gravemind that is instructing, teaching, kind of guiding. He's proclaiming, whereas Mendicant Bias, the AI, is asking all the questions, as if it's learning.
It's kind of pretty interesting, isn't it? Because like it's like searching for these answers.
Yeah.
And what's interesting as well is the Gravemind is challenging. Like, why do you think they chose you? Like, why did the Forerunners create you and put you in charge of all of their manpower, resources, military.
They need another aid.
Yeah, but it
And also puts doubt, potentially, or additional doubt in the AI programming mind
Yeah.
of his creators,
yeah. But it's also interesting, like the word choice that Gravemind uses. Like, why would they choose you as their executioner? So.
Yeah, and that's a good point for bringing that up, because the AI is also an advocate for peace. And so if he were to see himself then as the executioner, that's the antithesis of peace. So
Yeah, so pretty complex here.
Purposed you into a weapon to use against us. They sought to create something superior to themselves. Something capable of making decisions more swiftly, more capably than they. What form did they choose? You need look no further than your own topology to distributed network that would confirm the independent evolution of in this galaxy. That is, unfortunately, not the similar to us, but where you are a single intelligence inhabiting multiple instances. We are a compound consisting of 1,000 billion coordinated minds, inhabiting as many bodies as circumstance require. But doesn't it seem odd that coalesce, perhaps even to contract, complexity, spread, our appearance ushered in the beginning of the third great stage of evolution. The first condensation of particles was the result of the inevitable action of the strong nuclear force and the creation of stars, the inevitable action of gravity. So the self-replicating chemical processes that dictate all disparate. In time, we too shall affect change on a universal scale. Your capacity for planning, grid is too stubborn. The same goal through the preservation of genetic diversity. What you are, like a more direct path to the same outcome.
So that was Terminal 4. Any questions, or ready to move on to 5?
No, so far so good. Just one quick comment, and I could see them having just more dialogue. They're talking. There's nothing adversarial going on. There's no challenging either, really.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
And keep in mind, we don't know how long these conversations have been going for. Because keep in mind, the Mendicant Bias and the Gravemind have kind of it was studying the Gravemind for 43 years. So who knows how long they were communicating? Maybe that's answered somewhere, but I don't know the answer to that.
And I said just a minute ago, there's no challenge. There's no adversarial challenging. But what I see is a Gravemind challenging the thought processes of the AI. And I can see the AI being drawn into the Gravemind's dialogue, or his thought process, his thinking.
Right. And what's interesting is, like, the Forerunners have no idea.
That's right.
That their AI is going off and conversing with the enemy and slowly getting more and more drawn into its thoughts.
Oh, a quick question on that. You mentioned that they were incommunicado for 43 years, but it would be
at the very least, the Mendicant Bias was studying the Gravemind for 43 years. But yeah, I think it took over the course of 43 years to kind of get to this point.
Gotcha. Okay, so it wasn't as if I was going to ask you, were the Forerunners concerned because there's no communication with the Mendicant Bias? But there was, of course. It was a 43-year period where they were
I think at some point they did lose communication. So that I'm not too sure on. I can't answer 100%. Maybe someone in the comments can clarify that for us.
Okay. Yep. Well, let's play. Let's keep going.
All right. Let's go on to the next one.
Fleet-wide Memorandum 1 of 5. Non-combat personnel are required to wear combat skin with minimum rating of at least Class 12 in non-restricted areas once the fleet is underway. Class 14 or lesser combat skin is acceptable in core areas. Combat personnel will only be permitted to wear combat skin rated below Class 8 in core areas once operations begin. Fleet-wide Memorandum 2 of 5. All combat personnel have been issued combat skin rated at Class 4 Amist 1 or Class 6 Amist 1 battle harness, depending on military occupational speciality. All weapon platform specialists are expected to wear their issued platform interface skin at all times to ensure peak mind-machine synchronization. All equipment lockers will remain sealed until post-briefing gear distribution commences. Fleet-wide Memorandum 3 of 5. Those individuals that have yet to register their equipment control key code with Fleet Command should do so at their earliest opportunity. Compliance is not optional. Non-compliance will result in
This is where we are, right?
Yeah. That was the symbol that Mendicant Bias has.
Something is wrong. It's moving away. At night, I can see it. Flitting shadows, black against the stars. Thousands of ships, not spiraling outward, but heading for the line. This is the tipping point, Didact. It is no longer feeding. It is coming for you. I've remotely destroyed our key ships. A security measure. Without them, I cannot reach the Ark. But neither can the thing. I'm trapped on a beautiful, empty world. Its inhabitants have been safely indexed. Every single one of them. They're special. Well worth the effort it took to build one final gateway, even at this late hour.
I'm guessing she's on installation 04. That's a reach. Okay.
Now, so here's what I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, in the comments below. First of all, she's indexing. So that means that already probably means that she's not on the Halo ring, because she's going to these native planets to index those species. So she's probably on one of those planets. And she said she's trapped on this beautiful empty world, and she says something about them being special, and they're worth the effort it took to build one final gateway. Now, to build one final gateway to the Ark, what is a beautiful planet that we know with very special inhabitants that has a gateway built to the Ark?
That's us.
That's what I think this is referring to. So
Gotcha.
So it's pretty interesting. So she's trapped on this beautiful empty world, which is Earth, and she safely indexed its inhabitants, which explains how humanity was able to return after the Halo ray was fired. So, yeah.
Cool.
This may be our last communication. I'm begging you. Fire the array. Light the weapon and let it be done.
We've confirmed your observations. Infected superluminal ships are arrowing inward from several clusters. No more spiral growth. The thing is counterattacking. Suppression, security, and emergency circumstance fleets are all being recalled. Systems are evacuating. Mendicant Bias is no longer communicating with us. But now, I can guess where you are.
So that answers your question about communications. They lost communication with Mendicant Bias.
It is overwhelmingly clear that my creators have chosen to ignore destiny, calling to them from the threshold. Come face to face with the inevitable action of self-replicating chemical processes and have deciding whether to embrace their fate or to explosives. Perhaps they chose to leave it. Impartial outsider. Cast you as an arbiter during this time of great need. I was created to study you as if you were some problem to be solved. And I have done so for around 379,807 hours.
By the way, I took I did a quick calculation online. This amount of hours, days, years.
Or years, yeah.
This is over 43 years.
Oh, good.
So that's how I got the number, 43 years. So.
If they wished, they could have made a decision based on that data alone. But as you are the next stage in the evolution of the universe, who am I, or my creators, to obstruct your progress? Elucidate.
So he has already then said, you are that next stage. Therefore, you're the greater being, and we should not be getting in your way.
Right.
In so many words.
You're the next. Yeah.
You're the next phase.
The next stage of evolution in the universe. Like you're like my creators are like blindsided, right? Yeah. And then it's interesting that the Gravemind says elucidate.
Yeah.
You know,
tell me what you think.
Yeah. So actually, I didn't know what the word elucidate meant.
Give me more details.
I kind of inferred that's what the meaning was, but Google just to be sure, and it means like it means like explain further. Like the Gravemind wants to hear more.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of interesting that the Gravemind at this moment chose to, instead of like keep pushing, now that it sees the Mendicant Bias is kind of going down.
He won him over.
Yeah, now he wants to hear Mendicant Bias to continue speaking, because if you try and sell someone too much, then they're gonna start suspecting something. But at this point he knows that he can just pull back and just like let Mendicant Bias do the thinking itself.
Yeah.
So it's pretty interesting.
Choose to remain beholden to ancient myths. Does not matter where they claim their authority originates. Obstructs the path of universal evolution and must be removed. No matter how well intentioned, their obstinacy in the face of the inevitable progression of nature can no longer be tolerated.
Wow.
My creators have been an immovable object.
Clearly turning on them now.
Mm-hmm.
Thus, I have chosen to commit my sizable resources to what is, for all intents and purposes, the proverbial irresistible force.
Wow, look at this. That last line.
What I have is now yours to do with as you see fit.
That's pretty crazy, isn't it?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That when I heard that earlier today for the first time, that also gave me chills.
It's chilling. Chilling.
Yeah, because imagine you as a species, you're having this really tough war with like this parasite that's threatening to extinct, like make your species go completely extinct, and so you work super hard to create this AI. That's the pinnacle of like technological one of the most peak technological accomplishments your species has managed to create to save your skins, and that thing has full control over your military, your ships, your combat weapons, like all your systems and stuff. So with that last line, that means most of the Forerunners' resources are now on the Gravemind
of the enemy, the flood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So pretty crazy, right?
Yeah, it's really crazy, and of course, one thing I enjoy about this storyline is I can say I didn't see that one coming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, let's keep playing.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next ones. So we're going on to the next terminal. Ready?
Yeah.
Terminal 5. There's 7 terminals, by the way.
I just have to say one thing real quick.
Yeah.
Just kind of get in the mind of Master Chief. What in the heck is going through his mind as he's seen this? I mean, who knows, right?
Right.
But it just makes me wonder about that. Talk about a revelation.
Yeah.
The history and what's going on and where things are at. Anyway, I just had to throw that out as a ponderance.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of curious, guys. do you think that Master Chief is actually reading through these, or is this something that's only in the lore for what like us gamers can see? So like in the Master Chief doesn't actually stumble across this knowledge. That's what I'm kind of curious about. Is it something that only we as the player are aware of, or is Master Chief's intended journey in the actual story that he doesn't actually find these terminals? That I don't know.
Yeah, let us know what you think.
Yeah. Huh. So I'm curious whether or not Master Chief actually learned all of this.
Okay. Yeah.
So.
Considering the enemy compound intelligence's raw computing power, the key ship strategy will only remain viable for another 657,000 hours. And this current stalemate has the potential to last considerably longer than that. With my understanding of the enemy's modus operandi, its logical boundaries, and catalogue of witness, I have devised what I believe is our most sound fallback strategy. By cutting fire breaks into the core world's volume, we would be able to frustrate the enemy's advances for approximately 70,080 hours and lure them into costly naval battles. While its resources on the ground are effectively limitless, it has a finite number of vessels to spread from system to system. Fortunately, the majority of them are unarmed and unarmored, private and commercial craft.
So it's interesting. So basically, the conclusion that was come to here is that the way to combat the Flood, or at least stall them out longer, is to try to lure them into costly naval battles to take out some of their starships. Because, as it's pointed out, on the ground, like on planet, their resources are effectively limitless because the Flood can keep taking over more bodies, so they keep recovering their numbers. But they only have a finite number of ship vessels to jump from system to system. And luckily for us, for the Forerunners, I mean, the majority of those are unarmored and unarmed. Because
private commercial craft.
Yeah, because it's just like civilian craft that the Flood took over.
They took over. Yeah. And they took over as a transportation piece to get to the next planet.
Right. Exactly. I mean, the Flood obviously take both. They take military ships, and it just so happens that most of the ships that they capture are civilians because civilian ships have a lot more.
Sure.
Yeah.
If we start immediately, commence total biosphere elimination of life-sustaining worlds, as indicated in the accompanying charts, and relocate evacuated populations to facilities such as those described in the Onyx project. All this could be achieved in 571,590 hours, plus or minus 2,184 hours.
So reducing it from 8 years. Maybe to 7.
I render judgment on you.
Mendicant Bias.
You who obstruct destiny. Doing so brings me no joy. It is necessity that compels me. Understand this. The mantle you have shouldered, I do rescind, with far more consideration than it was granted.
What are your thoughts on that?
So, it's an assumption here. He's speaking to his creators or those in command. So he's been silent. There's been no communicado with him. And suddenly he comes back and gives this message.
At the bottom there it says contender AI confirmed rampant, and 05032 is Mendicant Bias's number. So they're confirming that the contender class AI Mendicant Bias is now rampant.
He's rogue.
Yeah.
As they would see it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's interesting that this is the message from the AI to its creators. I render judgment on you, you who would obstruct destiny, stating that basically they're trying to get in the way of nature's evolution.
What should happen? Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. So, ready for the next one?
Oh yeah. Keep it playing. Wow.
I destroy you in your indolent billions, in your gluttony, in your self-righteousness,
Wow.
in your arrogance. I pound your cities into dust. Turn back the clock on your civilization's progress. What has taken you millennia to achieve, I erase in seconds. Welcome back to the Stone Age.
What a statement.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome home.
Oh, these are the different levels. Got it.
Yeah, what I found interesting is for easy difficulty, it only shows the first part of the passage, and the first part he doesn't sound personal. He sounds more neutral kind of, versus in the normal one it's completely different. Has a completely different tone.
Absolutely. I kill you all.
I kill you all and I
enjoy
enjoy it. Versus for the first one, it's like basically just saying I render judgment on you for trying to stand in the way of nature's progress or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So the first one's kind of more like impartial, but this one is like personal almost, and it's pretty crazy
Exactly.
how that shift happened.
Yeah.
Now we can see heroic.
You are an impediment that the universe can no longer abide. Nature itself cries out for your destruction, and I am its willing instrument.
I think the previous one though was still
I will hammer your
stronger,
cities until
hardcore with the message.
rise atop another. I will drive your people back into the caves they never should have left. Your civilization has seen its final days. You will know your place.
Most advanced one.
Your history is an appalling chronicle of overindulgence and self-appointed authority. You have spent millennia navel-gazing while the universe has continued to evolve. And now you claim the mantle is justification for impeding nature's inevitable refinement. You are deluded, but through death you will transcend ignorance.
Yeah, so that was Terminal 5. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Wow. Oh, what a from the beginning, never would have imagined Mendicant Bias not just going over to the other side, but to a point where he is almost, like you said, taking a personal approach to the destruction of his creators.
Yeah.
Of the Forerunners.
Yeah, with vindictive anger, right?
Yes, and one thing I noted here is we don't hear from the Gravemind. So now he's completely on his own, the AI.
Well, this is the AI's message to its makers. He
Yes.
still might be with the Gravemind. He just, and probably still is with the Gravemind. He just sending this message out to his makers.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So he's saying the message because he's fully converted.
Yeah. And I kill you all and I enjoy it using your weapon systems against you. Very crazy. Ready for Terminal 6?
I sure am. Let's go.
I love seeing like the narrative progression that we're getting with these.
Follow-up report from the primary pioneer group, hereafter PPG, is 173 hours delinquent. Report G617A, KG post-landfall, seemed most promising. A planet capable of supporting life, located within the near border region of the galactic halo.
You think it's referring to Earth?
With no indigenous sentient species.
No, because
the section indicating no fauna of any kind shall be considered anomalous until verified by Advanced Survey Team Alpha, hereafter AST-A. Team leader, if confirmed, that fact alone would justify the dispatch of an investigation group to G617-G. If neither the PPG nor the AST-A have delivered a follow-up report within the next 333 hours, this office will have no recourse but to send a medium-intensity military exploratory detachment to determine the exact
about
nature
15 days.
of the previously mentioned delinquency.
My work is done. The portal is inactive. And I've begun the burial measures. Soon there'll be nothing but sand and rock, and normal ferrite signatures. You should see the mountain that watches over it. A beautiful thing. A snow-capped sentinel. That's where I will spend what time is left to me. Did I tell you? I built a garden. The earth is so rich. A seed falls and a tree sprouts or a flower blooms. There's so much potential. We knew this was a special place because of them. But unless you've been here, you can't know. It's Eden.
Interesting she refers to Earth as Eden.
Mm-hmm.
I have to stop transmitting. The thing is listening. It's thinking dead are babbling. Laughing through every channel they can find.
The flood.
Be proud. The mind claims victory, yet it still doesn't suspect. You've outwitted it, my love. And now, you can destroy it. But you cannot save me.
I begin this report with no illusions.
We have a new character. Did you notice?
Filial Devotion?
No, look at the symbol.
Offensive biased. Oh, so he's the AI that was developed because Mendicant Bias
Went rogue.
Yeah.
So this AI offensive bias was specifically designed to counter Mendicant Bias and help win the war in the way in the only way they can be won now. Right. So ready?
That it will ever be seen by its intended readers. In all likelihood, they have already committed species-wide suicide with the goal of preserving biological diversity in this galaxy. I must ensure that this information reaches those who must come after. If I fail in this, how can they not regard my Creator's sacrifice as anything but a crime without measure? Contender AI
To explain why they did this.
05032 Mendicant Bias is returning and has the capacity to bring the enemy through the Maginosphere. The crews of my task force are aware of the opposing fleet's size. All data indicates they have prepared themselves, but with biologicals, anything is possible. I will make sure that malfunctioning equipment does no further damage. Perhaps its current failure will finally allow it to succeed at the task it was originally created for. Mendicant has burrowed through the sphere exactly where I expected. A direct path from initial rampancy to final retribution. Rage has made it predictable. If the fate of the crews of my auxiliary fleet were not already a foregone conclusion, I would rate their chance of survival at 1 to 1,960,000. Even though 05032's declaration of hostilities simplified strategic preparations, I do not expect an easy fight. Just one I cannot lose.
So essentially he's saying we can't win.
Well, he's saying that this is a fight that he cannot afford to lose. Right.
But look at this ratio here.
Well, the chance of the survival of his crews is 1 to. This is what it would have been.
1 to 2 million, pretty much.
Yeah, that's what the chance would have been if it wasn't already a foregone conclusion. So it's already confirmed that the crews of all of his fleets will be dead by the end of this. But if it wasn't for that, then this is what he would rate the chances. Now, do you know why the deaths of his crews is already a foregone conclusion?
No. Oh, well, I would imagine because Mendicant Bias has authority or power, control over these fleets and ships.
No. Offensive Bias is currently talking about his own.
Oh no,
crews, and so
not unless there was an infection.
So the plan has something to do with the Halo array, and so this whole battle is like a whole lure and everything, and it's Offensive Biases has a very clever plan that's going to play, but because part of it will involve the activation of the Halo array, it means that all of the crews that on the ships that he is commanding are all going to get wiped out.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's why he's saying that if it weren't for that, he would have estimated that their chance of survival would have been 1 to nearly 2 million. Yeah. But at this point, it's 100% confirmed because that's their plan will involve
activation.
Yeah. So pretty crazy, right?
It's really crazy.
And this is all leading up to a massive naval battle. Ready?
05032 was right about one thing. There is only one way to defeat the enemy, and that is to visit utter annihilation on it. If the galaxy must be rendered temporarily lifeless, so be it. As Mendicant stated in its report, 58.078 hours, 48 minutes and 12 seconds ago, half measures will not suffice. In support of 05032's original 1,000 core vessels is a fleet numbering 4,802,019. Although only 1.8% are warships, and only 2.4% of that number are capital ships. I am outnumbered 436.6 to 1. I expect my losses will be near total, but overwhelming force has its own peculiar drawbacks. Such oppressive arms invites many opportunities for unintentional fratricide. My auxiliaries are momentarily stunned by Mendicant's opening move. 1,784,305 leisure craft, ranging from 45 to 5,769 tons, advance in hopes of overwhelming my comparatively tiny force. I do not have enough weapon systems to target them all. It is a mathematical certainty that some of them will get through and attempt to board. There isn't a single warship with this first wave. It seems my opponent's rage has left no room for respect.
I just have to say real quick, it's really interesting that offensive bias refers to Mendicant bias's strategy as a rage.
Right.
And he just essentially sees that he's thrown all of his, or not all, but overwhelming numbers at him where he cannot survive.
And did you notice that with the first wave, there's no military ships included? No like warships.
Oh, no, and I missed that.
So if we go back, check this out. So after mentioning that there's all these leisure craft, but then but then look at this. There isn't a single warship within this first wave. It seems my opponent's rage has left no room for respect. It's pretty interesting quote there, because offensive bias is saying like it's disrespectful. Like how dare he like not even use any warships in his first wave against me? So
he's gonna take me out without him.
Yeah, or well, we'll see. We'll see how the battle plays out. But do you see the how he was outnumbered like 436 something to 1?
Yeah.
Wow. Ready to continue?
Has left no room for respect. I could have countered its move if I had released my fighters. They are ready, but idle, making their base vessels more attractive prizes than targets. Now the first of many waves of commercial vessels mixed with single ships and assault craft surge forward. The first ship from my fleet to be boarded breaks formation and races into the oncoming vessels, striking one amidship. The cargo vessel's hull split open, and out of it explodes not the expected consumer goods, but 31,860 dying warriors.
And did you notice something interesting? I could have countered its move if I had released my fighters. They're ready but idle, making their base vessels more attractive prizes than targets. What are your thoughts on that?
More attractive prizes. He sees that they could probably take them and bring them into his fleet, right?
No.
Because they're a prize. They're not going to be a target.
But offensive bias is saying I could have countered Mendicant Bias's move with all these ships coming at us if I released my fighters, the fighters that were inside the main like base vessels, right?
Yeah.
But offensive bias said they are ready but idle, making their base vessels more attractive prizes than targets. So he kept all the fighters on this. From what's written here is he kept them on the base ships. This is the way I'm interpreting it. So the fighters, you know, like for example, the Pillar of Autumn. Remember when it was under attack, it released all of its fighters to try and buy itself more time. They started. He kept the offensive bias had the fighters stay on board the main ships that were getting boarded, to make those main ships more attractive prizes, to make it to like basically increase the amount of return Mendicant Bias would seemingly get if he took over those ships.
But he would get the equipment, he would get the fighters, but not the people.
No. The people are on board too. Because one of his ships, one of the offensive bias's ships, where was it written? The first ships from my fleet to be boarded. The first ship from my fleet to be boarded breaks formation and races into the oncoming vessel, striking one amidships. The cargo's vessel hull split open and outcome of it explodes. Not the expected consumer goods, but 31,000. Yeah. So he's keeping the people and the fighters on board,
So why would he do that?
Yeah. So ready to keep going?
Yeah, because I'm trying to think of ways to think about this can't be right. Why is he doing this? All right, let's continue.
Yeah. All right, here we go.
It doesn't make sense to me right now.
The seventh and final wave of container ships, barges, tankers, and military vessels engage my fleet. Another 214,320 ships, many in excess of 50,000 tons, engage my seemingly disrupted vanguard. I continue to fight just well enough to seem lucky. Mendicant, or the enemy, has been sending a small percentage of its fleet elsewhere. Good. Let them believe they can seize a foothold somewhere inside the sphere. Despite all its faults, 05032 has fought remarkably well. My auxiliaries lay in tatters. More than half of them are now part of the enemy fleet. But just as I had predicted, 05032 concentrated them like they were the sole key to victory. Its desire to punish our creators blinded it to the true purpose of my feigns. I have reduced the combat effectiveness of its core fleet to 79.96%. Surely now it must realize something is amiss. The halo effect strikes our combined fleets. All ships piloted by biologicals are now adrift. I can trade Mendicant Bias ship for ship now and still prevail. Of my ships that had been captured, 11.3% of them are close enough to Mendicant's core fleet that they can be used offensively, either by initiating their self-destruct sequences or by opening unrestricted ruptures into slipstream space. It is best that our crews perished now, because the battle that is about to ensue would have driven them mad.
Self-sacrificing.
Yeah, but isn't that so interesting though?
Yeah, it is. The strategy with that one.
Yeah, and
with bias.
Do you notice that offensive bias in order to
offensive bias?
Yeah, offensive bias in order to avoid Mendicant Bias from being suspecting at all. It even stated, "I fought only well enough to seem lucky." So to make it seem like it was lucky to even continue to fight when it could have easily done way better. And so it did moves such as not sending out fighters out of those base ships that were full of people, for Forerunners, to like not
give the illusion,
but also to have those ships get captured. And now those ships that were captured are scattered within the Mendicant Bias's fleet. Also, it sounds like he was sacrificed. Offensive Bias was sacrificing a lot of the fleets with people with like Forerunners on them, knowing that they're gonna get wiped out anyway. And when the halo effect struck, all of a sudden, most of Mendicant Bias's, which is the enemy, most of Mendicant Bias's fleet was rendered just floating there because most of them were piloted by biological beings, being the flood, that were wiped out as well. So it's pretty interesting how just with that one move, now the tide has turned. Now offensive bias has numerical superiority, whereas just a few moments ago, it was 436 to 1 ships.
Yeah, mathematically, it seemed not improbability, but impossibility for him to be victorious.
Yeah, but it's pretty crazy that like the Forerunner crews were sacrificed and infected by the flood and taken over. And offensive bias sacrificed all these guys just to get the ships closer, so that when the halo effect strikes, now all of a sudden he can use those ships to either detonate them or basically use them to destroy the Mendicant Bias's fleet even further. So pretty crazy, right?
It is. Yeah, I didn't see that one coming either.
Yeah, and I find this an interesting quote. It is best that our crews perish now, because the battle that is about to ensue would have driven them mad. So ready?
Yeah.
I throw away all the rules of acceptable conduct during battle. Near the ruptures, I throw away all the accepted ideas of how the natural world is supposed to behave. I toss around 37,654-ton dreadnoughts like they were fighters, dimly aware of the former crews being crushed to deliquesce. For now, all my concentration is focused on inertial control and navigation. Targeting isn't even a consideration. I will be engaging my enemy at arm's length. 05032 abandoned the tactic of using derelict ships as cover after 72 seconds. It seems that the 52 core vessels lost to the ruptured fuel cells of derelict ships was less than enough.
Wow.
Add
Look
another
at that.
608 lost
6
to
to 1.
collision, point fire, structural failure due to inertial manipulation, and slipstream space-induced discoherence. And I now outnumber Mendicants.
What a twist, huh?
Yeah.
Mendicant was able to postpone its inevitable annihilation for 106 seconds with its attempt to flee. But the last of its core vessels hangs before me now, crippled and defeated, but still sensate. I could spare it, carve out what is left of its personality construct array, and deliver it
I think he's going to
to
just take it out.
Installation Zero for study. But I doubt it would have extended the same courtesy to me.
Actually, if he does extend that courtesy, no, it doesn't matter. I'm thinking about where the flood come back in 100,000 years later.
It did extend that courtesy.
So that's where the flood did come.
So
100,000 years later.
So Mendicant Bias was taken taken back for study,
quandary.
and it was sealed away on the Ark underneath all that sand. Remember all the sand you're walking through in the Ark? It was sealed away under there for I guess intended for like eternity or whatever, to kind of just leave it to stir in its thoughts or whatever. But it was basically just sealed away on the Ark. That's what you need to know.
Okay.
So it was at this moment it wasn't killed.
Okay. Not destroyed.
Yeah. So the courtesy was extended. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Last terminal.
Come on, there's got to be more. We still haven't seen this.
Yeah, we'll see it. Filial Devotion.
Father,
Here it is.
I hope this message finds you well and helps you understand my decision. Today I leave the only world I have ever called home, not for glory or the anomalous desire to end another's life, as you have indicted, but to travel the path of demons to spare the hands of another father's son. Had we acted sooner, had we acted more decisively, living in the past is a luxury none of us can afford. We must learn from it, but we cannot live there. It is impossible to plan for the now. The present is ever fleeting. The future is where we must live. The future is what we must plan for. I do not look to trade my life in order to preserve our past, but to secure the future, and if not ours, then the future of some culture yet to come. Isn't sacrifice in the interests of others what you spoke of as being so noble? Should I have allowed another to bloody his hands while I remained safe behind a shield of privilege? You raised me better than that.
So, this is just an excerpt from a Forerunner, right? And in this case, it's from a son to his father, right? Do you understand kind of what it got at there when it mentioned shield of privilege? Why should I have allowed another to bloody his hands while I remain safe behind a shield of privilege?
Well, I did have a question of who Filial Devotion is, and it's just sort of a diary excerpt.
That's the name of this Forerunner who's leaving this message for his father. As far as I understand, that's all I know of,
okay.
In terms of like context.
Mm-hmm.
So
all right, and then you were pointing out something here.
Mm-hmm. So the shield of privilege. Do you know what he's referring to? That?
No. Should I have allowed another to play his hands while I remain safe behind the shield of privilege?
Yeah. So
what would be the shield of privilege? The arc.
So the Forerunners developed a series of what is known as shield worlds. Shield worlds. I think one of them is called Requiem. I believe that's a shield world. Are essentially these worlds that were designed for the Forerunners to like retreat to, kind of like a safe air bunker or whatever. There's these worlds that are like of last resort where you go to for try and get safety from the flood.
Oh, I would never know that. It was never in the game.
And from the Halo array.
Okay.
So in the case that the Halo gets fired, that those could survive.
They could go on the Halo because it's not going to destroy itself.
No, not the Halo. The Halo would kill them still.
Oh.
Shield worlds. These are shield worlds.
Okay.
I believe if you're, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe everything on the Halo would get killed as well.
Okay.
But so the shield worlds, the idea is that they could stay there. That's why I remember the Librarian, she was telling the Didact that she destroyed her key ships to return to the Ark, to try and get to safety. So she couldn't make it back to a shield world in time because she had to destroy her ships because she was in fear that maybe the flood could capture her ships and make it back. But essentially what's being said here is he's talking about sacrifice and why should I allow another to bloody his hands while I remain safe behind a shield of privilege, because only the privileged Forerunners are the ones who get to, like, maybe the upper class or those who have certain status are able to hide in these worlds that would keep them safe from the blasting of the Halo array.
Yeah.
And so what's interesting is this Forerunner, he's basically telling his father that he's going to go out and sacrifice himself. He's not going to stay hidden behind this. He's not going to use his privilege to stay safe from the Halo array. And so he's maybe an example of just one of those hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of Forerunners who were part of that offensive biases fleet that got wiped out. Because remember, just one of his ships got destroyed, and out of it came over 30,000,
32,000.
Yeah, Forerunners who died. And so this could be one of those Forerunner soldiers, basically, right? That he could have survived, but he chose to sacrifice himself instead.
Right.
So yeah, pretty interesting.
It's
right?
really interesting, especially with more of the background story on it.
Right.
And shield of privilege.
Yeah, and a shield world, it kind of, the way I would envision it at least, I would think it would have some sort of maybe outlines, some sort of visible shield on the outside, maybe some sort of ray of light. Wouldn't you think that?
So I think a ray of light, exactly like we saw me, or Master Chief, flying into with Cortana at the end of Halo 3, with the light showing at the horizon.
And I believe that was Requiem, the main shield world.
That's a shield world. That's a shield of privilege right there. Which means there are Forerunners and there's a remnant. Potentially. I knew it. Didn't I say something? I knew it. So this is really cool. How there's going to be that connection with Master Chief and potentially, like you're saying, I think they're there.
You think they're there?
I do. Yeah.
Right.
Even though it's 100,000 years later, why wouldn't they have created technology to maybe travel to other worlds? Or maybe they did, and they left behind them.
Well, they technically should have still had it around, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So why didn't they appear throughout the 3 Halo games that we had, even when the Flood made its reappearance?
So, yes, and I think because they think they're far superior, and they were very superior, maybe they thought, let's let them battle it out and have a destruction, and even ignite or activate the halo because we're protected. And then once the universe or the galaxy is freed up from the flood, which were the precursors, and humanity, which we as Forerunners, we were not fond of, then we can absolutely rule the galaxy without any opposition.
All right. Well,
so yeah, this is really cool. The mantle. So the mantle that's not an actual object. That's more of a concept. That's more of
a philosophy, so to speak.
Yeah.
That that the most advanced civilization gets to rule the rest.
Yeah.
That it gets to care for and make the decisions.
Have authority over.
Right, and make the decisions it sees fit for the benefit of itself and the species it rules over.
Okay, so that's Halo 4 with Master Chief landing on this shield world.
Well, that's the outro of Halo 3. That's the bonus scene.
Right, but we have to see what happens, and so we'll see that in Halo 4.
You'll see.
Oh man,
I'm not gonna say it.
I gotta see this. I really gotta see this.
I gotta say whether or not that will happen because it'll be a spoiler.
Okay, all right.
But yeah, so now I can see the gears turning.
Yeah. There's so much to noodle on here. All right, let's go ahead. All
right, let's keep it pushing.
Filial Devotion.
This is great, man.
Yeah.
Proud? When I have failed you utterly, how can I feel anything but sorrow? Bias has come undone. He crossed the line this morning, brought the abomination with him, and destroyed your waiting rescue party. It's over. We're activating the destructive array matrix. Our shameful last resort. I can picture you.
Oh, let's go back.
Yeah.
I just want to kind of reread this and see where this is coming from. It's not coming from Filial Devotion. It's coming from Didact.
This is from the Didact, yeah.
Yeah, okay, it's coming from Didact.
Mm-hmm.
And
you can see for a D.
Oh,
see?
D, yeah, there. I'm looking at the symbol here.
Right.
Yeah.
Remember, the Librarians was down below, so the Librarians was like offset.
Now.
Yeah, she's gone now.
Yeah.
But his was always like above, and hers was always down below.
So he's probably speaking.
Because remember, she left him a final message,
and he's replying to it now.
Right. Yeah. And in her final message, she pled for him to activate the Halo array. And he says it's over. We're activating the destructive array matrix. And he says bias has come undone. He crossed the line this morning, the Mackinac line or whatever it was being called. And he brought the abomination with him to flood with him. And he destroyed your waiting rescue party that was hoping to like rescue her. And so and remember, in one of his earlier conversations, he was so sure that his plan was perfect and that Bias would help defeat the flood. And now Bias is showing up alongside the flood. So.
And it looks like he's now saying we essentially are going to activate the Halo, which he wanted to do from the get-go.
She wanted to do from the get-go.
Oh, that's right. She wanted to do, and he was saying, no, let's not do that.
No, we can defeat them. No, we're an immovable force. No, I have the perfect plan with Mendicant Bias, and it's going to save the day. Yeah. And now he's like all depressed because he realized just how early wrong he was about everything, and she was right all along.
Well, and more importantly, he's got to destroy life, which he wanted to prevent.
Yeah, the shameful last resort.
Yeah. So. Okay.
Here we go. I clicked up here. That's why when you hit the space bar, it doesn't.
Okay.
Let me make sure we're still recording. This is a long video.
Hold me back.
All right, here we go. Ready?
Yeah.
Shameful last resort. I can picture you in your garden, surveying all you have created, surveying all you have preserved. And I curse the circumstance that keeps my finger on the trigger. Of all the fates to befall us, this is the cruelest of all. My inaction and hesitation and foolishness kept me here on the wrong side of the line. And 300 years of our society's failure and miscalculation makes me your executioner.
The war lasted 300 years.
It's too much to bear. Mendicant Bias is trying to prevent us from firing the array. He speeds back to the Ark, but he won't succeed. Offensive Bias will stop him, and I will burn this stinking menace in your name.
And then, as we saw, offensive bias was successful.
And then I will begin our great journey without you, carrying this bitter record.
I just have to say one thing real
Those who
quick.
come after will...
Yep.
So he says, I will begin our great journey without you. And the prophets used to use that term a lot, the great journey.
Yep.
I think they're different.
I think they are different as well, yeah.
Yeah, but it's just interesting using the same terminology. It just stood out to me. I had to point that out.
Exactly, yeah. I'm glad you pointed that out. I wonder how that came to be. If you guys know the answer to that, let us know in the comments below. How I wonder if like maybe the prophets stumbled across maybe some old record left behind by the Forerunners, and they misinterpreted the meaning of the great journey or whatnot, and they kind of took their own spin on it. That'd be kind of an interesting little backstory, because that happens in history a lot. Is that people will take the words from an ancient passage and they'll misinterpret it for their own means, whether intentionally or unintentionally.
Yeah.
So.
Sure. Let us know, please. I'd be really curious to hear what you think.
All right, ready?
Yeah.
Carrying this bitter record. Those who come after will know what we bought with this false transcendence. What you bought, and the price you paid.
No, that can't be. Okay, we have one more.
Yep.
Okay, so Reclaimer, I recall that from the game, but I don't remember. It's very vague to me now.
It oftentimes, throughout the game, it was used to refer to Master Chief.
That's what I thought,
or humans
but
it's
before his time. Go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, but what's interesting, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but this guy, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this is actually present. Mendicant Bias is speaking to the Reclaimer, aka Master Chief.
Master Chief, right.
So Master Chief is this is his message directly to Master Chief. Because after this 100,000 years have passed, all this time Mendicant Bias was sealed away on the Ark.
Below the sand.
Which means he was still here. And this is his message to Master Chief.
Interesting. Can we replay that then? Let's go back.
Yeah. Let me rewind. All right, ready?
Yeah.
You don't know the contortions I had to go through to follow you here, Reclaimer. I know what you are here for. What position do I take? Will I follow one betrayal with another? You're going to say I'm making a habit of turning on my masters. But the one
I think you're right.
destroyed me long ago in the upper atmosphere of a world far distant from here was an implement far cruder than
Offensive Bias. Who's got me?
weakness, this capacity, unintentional though it was, to choose the flood.
Now he sees it. he sees it.
My makers will not soon forgive. But I want something far different from you, Reclaimer. Atonement.
Yes, so I think you're totally onto something here.
Yep.
Let us know what you think, but I'm with you.
Well, yeah, I think Master Chief is receiving this message, but it is confirmed that from what I read that this is taking place modern time.
Yeah.
So 100,000, like around 100, I'm rounding it obviously, but like around 100,000 years later.
Fast forward,
to Fast forward to the present.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting to see it's like reflecting in it, and it's had 100,000 years while being buried under
to
the
reflect
sand,
on what happened.
on what happened, and think, and then realize it
took the wrong side.
Yeah. And it's pretty interesting how even Mendicant Bias even brings up that the one that destroyed it long ago was an implement far cruder than I, in the sense that when the offensive bias didn't have the same level of creativity or free will, because it was more constrained, because the Forerunners learned their lesson after what went wrong with Mendicant Bias.
Yeah, he was too advanced. A contender, he said.
He had too much. His weakness was his capacity, like his capacity for free will to make its own decisions. And he says, and though it was unintentional, he chose to side with the flood, which was a mistake that his makers, the Forerunners, would not soon forgive.
And so he's still alive, alive, still processing. You know, he's
after all this time.
After all this time, because of course he wasn't biological. So it makes me think about offensive bias. What's happened to?
That's a good question.
Yeah,
I haven't researched that yet, so I'm not sure what happened to offensive bias.
All right, now I can't sleep tonight. That is your homework. All right, let's see.
All right,
let's go.
Ready?
Oh, I'm sorry. One more thing. And he also, he's making a request from Master Chief. Atonement.
Atonement. Yeah, that's something he wants.
Yeah.
Ready to see what else he's gonna say?
Yeah. Yeah, I am. Let's go.
And so here, at the end of my life,
Gravemind.
Once again betray a former master. The path ahead is fraught with peril, but I will do all I can to keep it stable, keep you safe. I'm not so foolish to think this will absolve me of my sins.
Wow.
One life.
I just finished reading.
Balances billions. But I would have my masters know
jeez.
that I have changed.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
And you shall be my example.
And it makes me think about how much help in any way he could have given to Master Chief. Remember, as he's trying to get off the Ark, and then of course it blows up. And
I think what's especially powerful is what you just read. I had the exact same reaction this morning when I first saw that.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, because it's like his final message was so hard hitting.
Yeah.
And what's interesting, that's the final words. That's the final terminal. That's it. There's nothing else.
Yeah.
Those are the final words. And I was curious, like, how did he help out Master Chief?
Yeah.
And by the way, you notice Mendicant Bias said at the end of, like, this is the end of the road for him, basically. Like, this is the
end of his life. Yeah. He calls himself life. But
because as the rings go exploding and everything,
he knows
he knows he's going to die.
Yeah.
And for his atonement that he wants to prove to his creators that he truly has changed, he's going to save Master Chief. He's going to keep him alive. Yeah. And so I was curious, like, in what ways was Mendicant Bias helping Master Chief at the end of Halo 3? Because we don't really, from the game perspective, we don't actually see any interference from him, right? So I read two main theories that people had, and it could be one or the other or both or neither. But for now, I'm just going with both of these are true. But let us know in the comments below if you guys agree with these theories and what you think, or if there's a separate theory as to what Mendicant Bias did to help Chief. But two of the theories that I read and my quick research.
I have a quick thought, but go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I'll let you take your guess first.
So I think there might have been some manipulation with the Gravemind in some way. The Gravemind could have destroyed the Arbiter and Master Chief, but didn't. And I always wondered, why didn't he just destroy them? Now, because he was going to manipulate them, and he used them for his own purposes, right? But I'm wondering if now, having more knowledge of this in the background, if Bias helped to manipulate that in some way. The second thing I'm thinking of is technological. Technologically, what did he do to help create or ensure the destruction of the Ark? But go ahead. Okay. Two theories.
So here's the two theories that people that I read that other people have. So it's not my original ones, but these are the ones that people have listed, and it sounds interesting. The first one, it's kind of on the technological side, is that Mendicant Bias helped hold the ring together long enough for Master Chief to escape. So remember, towards the end when you're driving, those tiles are falling down. People said that he was holding some specific tiles in place so that you can drive over them rather than falling with the rest of the installation. So he was actually helped you have a safe path to drive down and escape.
Get to the ship and fly off. Yeah.
Right. And the second one, which is the one that's even more accepted, which is a really interesting theory, is that Mendicant Bias altered the course and like basically sent Master Chief's half of the ship when instead of it getting destroyed. Remember, the back half of the ship didn't make it through the portal.
Yes, he sent him to the shield
towards one of the Forerunners shield worlds, Requiem.
Yes,
in order to send Master Chief to his masters.
So he can give him the message that he redeemed himself.
Either give him the message or just the fact that Master Chief will serve as proof that Mendicant Bias has atoned for his sins or redeemed himself.
Because he said, "How will they ever know what I've done?" Right?
Yeah.
Well, they're going to know now through Master Chief.
Right. Well, that's the idea anyway. But
the idea. Yeah.
So. What do you think?
Yeah, I like these. I want to know. Come on, play the next one.
Unfortunately, no more terminals for Halo 3. At least it looks like. But yeah, so that was. You wanted more Halo? We got more Halo for you.
Wow. Yeah. This is great.
So what do you think of the overall everything?
Okay,
you just witnessed.
I gotta tell you, my sensei said, look, he never gives me spoiler alerts, right? And he said, you're going to learn a lot more from this one. I never thought I'd learn as much as what's been revealed here. You know, we saw other clips, and I thought, okay, you'll get some background, you'll get some context, you'll get some history. This really provided a lot, especially with you showing the legendary end clip of what happened to
Master Chief, right? Yeah,
and Cortana. Yeah, and I agree with one of your theories. I mean, it could be something different, but maybe he was going to the shield world at the very end. Yeah. So, and I'm glad you showed that to me too, because you know that's on Legendary. I mean, who in the heck's gonna get through Legendary? Come on, right? It just doesn't happen. But it was at the end.
Yeah.
I hope you guys know what I'm talking about.
Well, yeah, guys, good point there, Rob.
Yeah.
I just recently had Rob react to the Halo 3 Legendary ending. Since Rob beat Halo 3 for the first time, he beat it on normal difficulty for the most part, aside from one level, but everything else normal difficulty. And of course, to get the Legendary ending, you have to play the game on Legendary. Yeah. So I just pulled up a clip on YouTube to show to Rob. And what's cool is the Legendary ending of Halo 3 gives a little bonus scene where it shows the back half of the Forerunner to Dawn drifting towards a suspecting planet, which is likely a Forerunner shield world, judging by the appearance.
Very likely, and I want to know the history of that too. Is that in a book in the series?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's a lot in the books.
I have time to read these books.
I feel the same way. Like there's lots I would love to read, but there's just a lot of books. There's a series of books that I also really enjoyed reading. There was called Halo Evolutions, which was basically a collection of short stories from the Halo universe. So you actually get to see some of them though, because what they did was they took some of those short stories out of those novels and they made animations for them, kind of like a comic book style animation. Yeah. They did that for some of those short stories. Unfortunately, they didn't make a Halo Evolutions animation for one of my favorite short stories out of that book, though, which was called Dirt. So that was a really good one. And you probably have no idea what I'm talking about because you have
no spoiler alert. Can you tell me?
Tell us. I'd rather see if there's a video that summarizes the story of Dirt well for you, or if not, maybe I'll create something eventually. All right. That'll take time and effort. So, yeah, that would be a little further now.
I gotta thank you for sharing this with us here, because This was it was remarkable. I'm glad you found this. I've learned a lot, and I've learned enough to keep me up at night now, at least tonight, and just think, okay, what happened here? What happened here? And trying to piece this together and that together, and it's absolutely fascinating. I want to rewatch this again, but with what I've seen, it gave a lot of answers, and it creates a lot of ponderance as well.
Yeah.
But I like it. I like it. Now I'm in greater anticipatory to begin Halo 4. Although I know that's not the next journey.
No,
but,
you got a couple more games to go through before we get to Halo 4.
couple?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was just one.
Yeah, no, you got more.
All right, we got to get started.
Yeah. So, but before we get started, we got more Halo media for you to check out. We got a lot of Halo media for you to check out.
Yeah, let's do it.
We got Halo Evolutions, we got Halo Legends, and then before we jump into Halo 3 ODST, we're of course going to check out an iconic Halo 3 ODST live action trailer.
All right, let's do it.
You got that coming up.
All right, coming up.
And
you guys, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, before we wrap up though, I do want to know, what's your favorite out of everything you saw from the Halo 3 terminals? Which one was your favorite? Like, which narrative or like, just in general, what piece of it intrigued you the most?
It's a cross between the last two, really. It was intriguing how the Gravemind and Mendicant Bias created a relationship, but the last two, Terminal 6, because we saw the battle between Offensive Bias and Mendicant Bias, and that exposed a lot. But the last one, again, because it was, I think, a really good wrap up with Mendicant Bias and him potentially passing on the torch of knowledge directly to Master Chief.
Yeah.
And some of you are going to give us your opinions. Do you think that all the terminals were read and seen by Master Chief, or was it just that last one? Because it was definitely a message to him, Terminal 7.
Right, yeah. And I really like just how it was written, because it was like really hard hitting, and it's an interesting contrast to the earlier some of the earlier messages Mendicant Bias sent out to his makers about "I kill you all and enjoy it" and all those.
I enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah, all those pretty crazy written passages. I will like hammer down your cities until not a single stone lies on top of another. I will send you back to like the caves where you should never have
left.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your cities will all be dust.
Yeah. Imagine how someone goes from that level of conviction to realizing they were completely in the wrong and wanting to atone for it.
And this AI, and this AI wants to atone for it. You know, it has this sort of a much greater sense of free will and recognizes it. His fallacy was his weakness was his capacity to think and have choice.
Yeah, which is an interesting, like moral, like, or not. I don't know if moral is the right way of putting it.
Well, yes, because I'm sorry to tell you this.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, what I wanted to say was, he had a moral sense because he felt guilty, and then he had a desire for his Forerunners to know that he actually helped destroy the flood so he could atone himself. Well, why would AI even care to atone himself? Why would AI even express guilt? So as a contender AI, significantly advanced, but interesting how it created its not just a persona, but truly its own person. Yeah.
And I think for me, what really intrigues me is like with this is like the parallels to like modern day society. For example, something that I always loved with Halo is it's something that you can easily envision as like a future possibility. Like this is what the future could look like. And I'm just imagining like, what if there was a scenario where humanity put its trust into like a single AI to like lead its fleet or whatever, and it ends up turning on them. That's just, it's such an intriguing like narrative to explore. And I'm really glad that they took the effort to write all this and include it.
But they did this years ago.
Yeah, they did this.
And those discussions are happening just in the past year as far as it being a reality.
Yeah, and Halo 3, I think it came out in 2007. So think about it. That's
15 years ago or so.
Yeah.
Longer. Yeah.
Yeah, like 16 years ago.
Yeah.
It's a long time ago, and they already were on the right path. So.
Yeah, great job with this. I am going to atone myself from saying that these guys at Bungie got lazy in their writing.
I
remember that.
Yeah. Rob wasn't happy with the flood. By the way, how's your thoughts on the flood changed at all since this?
Very much. Oh yeah, that's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about the veil has been removed. You know, I see. I'm no longer the worm seeing things blindly.
Yeah, you're like, these stupid space zombies, so unoriginal.
Yeah, who the heck are they? Why did they even throw them in there? Yeah. So
you know what? I think the creators only threw in space zombies because everyone's doing zombies during this time of point.
Remember that? I made that statement. I did. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
I really believe that too.
Mm-hmm.
No, but what a twist! And I like how you explained to me how the particle form of the precursors.
Yep.
It was corrupted, and thus came this.
Yeah.
This being the flood and the Gravemind.
Exactly. Yeah.
All that.
So.
This is great stuff.
Yeah.
I need more time. I want to go buy those books. So I know me. I want to go buy the books. I can read them, and then they're going to sit on my library shelf on one of my bookshelves, and I'm going to feel guilty for not reading them.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh come on.
I'm guilty of having quite a few books that I bought probably many years ago and not having touched a single one.
Good. It's not just me, okay?
Yeah. The one book I kept rereading over and over again is The Flood, and I read it so many times that I even had like a few pages.
Oh, there's a book called The Flood.
Oh yeah. That's the one that's parallels Halo Combat Evolved.
Okay, so you knew during this whole time who the Flood were, where they came from, and so you must have got such a kick out of hearing me complain and whine about the Flood all this time.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, if you only knew. Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah. Well, I did find it funny when you're like, oh, space zombies. So I'm like, oh, they're a little bit more advanced than that.
They're a little more advanced, yeah, significantly more advanced.
Yeah. But with that being said, we hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell icon to stay up to date on future videos and continue following Rob on his Halo journey.
Yep. We are back, so you will see us soon.
All right, guys. Take care.